Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows.
This is it, man. 2018, a year in review.
Yes, it is. I have to say, I am very excited to be talking about 2018, a year in review. I've been looking forward to recording this episode, honestly, for about a month now. I actually went back and listened to the 2017 A Year in Review episode, which we did, which was exactly 50 episodes ago, as a side note. Fun fact, yeah, that'll be our fun fact / hot take for the week for this episode. So yes, very good. I kind of wanted to get a feel for like. Did I end up agreeing with my assessments of things last year? And the bottom line was yes. I still stand by my opinions that I set down, but it just got me hyped because I'm just like, oh man, there's just so many good things to talk about this year. So many good movies that came out this year, and TV shows. We're going to talk some TV shows too. Can't forget about the TV shows. You know, I didn't watch as much TV this year as I probably have in years past, unfortunately, just due to having less free time, especially in the back half of the year. But what are you going to do? The lesson that I learned and going back in that is we ain't got time for news, man. We ain't got time for bullshitting. We just gotta get into 2018 because we have plenty of awards to hand out, and you know we've got some. I think we have some good conversations waiting in the wings, and as I talked about on that episode 50 episodes ago, I am equally interested to hear what you have to say, like what your picks are going to be for all of these awards that we have set up as we get into it through this episode. So it's going to be a good time. So I want to lay down the law very quickly and just say I want to do a general spoiler warning for everything. I think we'll try to keep it, not like, I don't think we're going to try to drop like massive spoilers for everything we talk about, unless it just naturally comes up. It's just one of those things. I just don't make any promises. I think, we're speaking a lot about like technical awards and stuff like that, but, especially as we get into our favorites for the year, it helps to explain why. And sometimes that involves getting into some plot details. So you've been warned on that front. And the other thing I want to mention is that we didn't watch everything. Like I said, I've watched less television. I try to watch as many films as I can. I think they're a lot more digestible. 2 hours versus 10 plus hours of content. You can watch 5 movies in the same span that you might watch a single season of a TV show. So just naturally.
And in my personal case, I didn't catch a lot of the what would be the quintessential award worthy movies.
Maybe not. I
didn't catch a lot of them. I mean, there's a few in there like Green Book, I think is one I didn't see. I think a nominated movie's 8th Grade, if I'm not mistaken, for certain stuff. I don't know what it's nominated for.
Yeah, I didn't see that either. So, like I said, it swings both ways. Yeah, maybe I've probably seen a handful more than you, but at the same time, there's probably some films that you saw that I didn't see. So TV shows you saw, I know there's definitely TV shows you saw that I didn't see. Whether or not they make your list, that's obviously something I can't speak on. But anyway, we say all this just to say that, hey, these are our opinions based off of what we've watched. If we had all the time in the world, it's entirely possible we'd see things that we didn't get a chance to see, and we might actually like them better than some of the things that we ended up, putting for our winners in these categories. But, as of January, middle of January 2019, we're going off of what we've seen. I think we've got enough under our belt that we can make some sort of informed decisions on this, I would say.
That's right. Yeah, we watch a lot of movies.
So let's talk about 2018, man. Just generally speaking, we didn't really do this last year, so I'm trying a new bit. We'll see how it goes. All
right.
You know how much I love box office, so I wanted to quickly shout out some of like the biggest like box office things that stand out from 2018. So I think probably the biggest storyline of the year, box office wise, has to be Black Panther. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind.
Took the world by storm. Yes,
absolutely
ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, took the nation by storm. I think is probably the biggest place to start. It is the top-grossing domestic film of 2018. Black Panther. That's fucking insane. Well deserved, I would say, and I think I don't think it's a spoiler to say that it might come up in some capacity again as we move along into this episode. But top film domestically, $700 million for a film with about a 90% black cast. That's kind of unheard of. I mean, to even make a movie like that in the first place, and one that you pump, $200-ish million budget into, doesn't happen. But it did, right. And clearly there was a hunger for something like that to happen. So I think it's safe to say we'll see more films along that line. But ended up actually number 2 worldwide with $1.35 billion. So across the $1 billion threshold. Mercy. So pretty ridiculous. It was actually only one film for 2018 that crossed the $2 billion threshold. Could you take a swing at what it might be?
Yeah. Unless you're living under a rock, you've probably seen it.
Yeah, if you're part of the human race, you might have seen it.
That's it.
Yes, Avengers: Infinity War is the one in question. It was the top grossing film worldwide, just north of $2 billion. It finished about $20 million shy of Black Panther domestically at $679 million. So it was no slouch on any in any territory. Let's put it that way. And it's actually one of 3 Disney films that crossed $1 billion. Can you guess what the third one was?
Star Wars?
No, Star Wars is going to go into a different topic of conversation. Incredibles 2 was number 3. It was actually, I think, number 3 in general domestically. And it was.
So you're telling me, in 2018, Disney made over $4 billion in 3 movies.
That is absolutely correct. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Just absolutely crushing it.
Yeah,
as per usual, there was 5 films that ended up over $1 billion. Now, 3 of them were Disney. 2 of them were from other studios. One was Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. Unfortunate, I might say, but clearly it had some mass appeal, and sometimes quality doesn't correlate with success. Not always. Sometimes it does. I think in the case of Black Panther, Avengers, and Incredibles, I would say I take a step back and say,
movies.
Yeah, cool. Right. I'm okay with this. And then the other one, which actually just crossed $1 billion worldwide, it's Aquaman. Which I think it's now the highest grossing film in the DC cinematic universe.
Aquaman. What universe do we live in?
Yeah, well, I can safely say that you turn the clock back a year, you go back to our episode of us looking ahead to 2018, and I don't think any of us had that hot take. Although I think I did have the hot take that it would be a pretty all right movie, and I got that part right. But
you did get that part right. I was shitting on it.
We shit on some other things that maybe turned out pretty good. Maybe we'll talk about at least one of those films, I think, probably in a little while. So, Aquaman. And the thing with Aquaman, too, of course, you have to consider that still in theaters. It's still making money. It's number 6 right now in the domestic charts, but it's still making money. It's going to at least crack the top 5. I think it's like $15 million behind Deadpool 2. So, yeah, it'll make that in a couple weeks, no problem. So, some good box office success stories. Not everything was all peachy. Solo, Star Wars story, not so peachy. It made over $200 million domestically, but it had a very lackluster response, to say the least, around the globe. Finished $392 million worldwide, which for a movie that effectively was made twice ended up costing around $300 million to make. That is not a envious,
dismal,
result to achieve. So, yeah, and then Venom actually did really well for itself at $855 million worldwide, but it was Venom. Enough said. So, technically, it's good if you're Sony, bad if you're fans of movies that are good. It happens sometimes, as I've said. So that's the long and short of the box office type things. I mean, we had a lot of good things that came out this year, and some things that weren't so good, and we'll touch on them very shortly. I also wanted to talk about some of the major deaths in the industry. This is not intended to be an exhaustive list. This is just some names that I, as I was looking through, it was just kind of like, this person had some sort of impact on me, or someone just like a very recognizable figure in some capacity. So early in the year, I think February, Johan Johansson, the composer, passed away. I know we talked about this a ways back. Did the score for Sicario, among other things. Yeah, so... and he was pretty young, so that was definitely something that was very surprising, came out of nowhere. R. Lee Ermey, earlier this year as well. I think he was actually just laid to rest, military honors, which is very cool. Margot Kidder, the original Lois Lane from Superman the movie. I mean, she's probably still the quintessential Lois Lane for many people. You know,
sure.
I don't know that we've had a representation of the character that's been more iconic than that. So that's something. Anthony Bourdain, television personality, had massive impact. I know on people in our friend circles. You know, when he passed away. Burt Reynolds passed away not too long ago. And then Stan Lee. You know, we talked about Stan Lee, but there's a lot of things we're going to talk about on this episode that were based on characters co-created by Stan Lee, you know? So we've spoken on the record, you know, at some time about how much Stan Lee means to us and what he's done for the industry and the sort of legacy that he leaves behind. But it's worth mentioning again, I think. So those are a few names. Like I said, not everyone, you know, but you know, it's never fun to have to talk about something like that. But at the same time, a lot of these guys had long lives.
They have quite the legacy
that leave just a ton of legacy behind, and you know, you'll always have their work to go back to. You know, whether it's a score, you know, that was composed, whether it was a film that they're in. You know, Full Metal Jacket's still going to be there. You can still watch Full Metal Jacket and see R. Lee Ermey being fantastic in that. Superman the movie, Anthony Bourdain's TV shows still around. You know, so there's a lot of legacy, as you say, that they leave behind, and so I think people will be continued to be inspired by what they've done. But you know, to take this into maybe less somber direction, we're going to get into our awards for the year.
Ooh!
So we're going to start with television. Now, we have a lot more film awards than we have television awards, mostly because we just don't have the breadth of information, I think, to really make a good qualified judgment on, like, this is the best actor in TV shows, and like I have opinions on that. But that's a hell of an endeavor that I will leave to the professional critics. But we can talk about our top 5 television shows. I guess I'll add a note on this. This is really, it's not necessarily a top in the sense of these are absolutely the 5 best television shows. These are our favorites. You know, at least I can say on my behalf when I'm making these judgments, it's somewhat of a mix of an objective and subjective kind of thing where I'm like, well, it has to be really kind of technically well made. But at the same time, I allow a little bit of bias into there where I'm like, well, I really like this genre. Or I really like, right. You know, like there's elements of that where, like, you know, if people didn't like that thing, they could probably still appreciate it as being a well-made show, even if it wasn't for them. So I say that, and that applies, I think, throughout the rest of our the episode too. You know, in terms of
absolutely,
it's less top, less best, less worst, more most favorite, least favorite, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But again, you know, there are opinions. What are you going to do? You know, you guys are the listeners are the one listening. So someone seems to put some sort of stock into our opinion, or no one's listening, right. In which case, so be it. We're gonna have a conversation amongst ourselves, and that'll be just fine with me. So top 5 television shows. We're gonna go in reverse order. We'll start with number 5. Would you like to kick it off, or would you like me to kick it off, sir?
I'm gonna kick it off. I'm gonna kick it off with Barry.
Barry. Oh, okay.
Little HBO dark comedy that I happen to enjoy. Pretty good. I enjoyed that movie pretty well. It made me laugh. It made me question why I was laughing. It made me kind of feel bad for laughing, but at the same time, it was kind of heartfelt. It's kind of like I don't know how to describe it. It's different. And I think that's going to be the precedence for these next couple of choices, and throughout the episode. It's really cool when somebody has something to say, and I don't know if this is Barry based on anything, or is this original, or what? Do you know?
As far as I know, I think it's just an original show.
Yeah, and it's fucking cool. It's a real good show. I like it. I'm glad I think we get season 2 this year.
We do. Yeah. I think it's probably filming by now. I would imagine. So yeah, I agree. Yeah, Barry season 2 sounds good to me.
That's it. What do you got for number 5?
My number 5 is also an HBO show, and it's one by the name of Westworld.
Ooh,
so,
very nice.
Season 2, I felt overall it was weaker than season 1. You know, I think it lost a bit of the novelty from season 1, but at the same time, I felt like it explored a lot of super interesting ideas. Performances were strong. It's clear that HBO puts a lot of money into this show, and I appreciate that. Production values are you know, kind of next level for television side of the things. And I had a really good time with it. I do think it was somewhat uneven, as with, it's kind of typical of Westworld. You kind of just like halfway through the season, you're just like, all right, where are we going with this? But I felt like the way that it wrapped up sets up for a very interesting season 3, and I felt like it justified a lot of the journey that preceded it. And it might not have made my top 5 if it were not for the episode Kiksuya, which was the one about the Native American, the Ghost Nation guy, and it's like just that whole episode that's just on him and like his backstory, and like he's kind of aware what's going on, and it was easily the best episode.
Trying to figure that shit out.
Yeah, easily the best episode in the season, possibly for the entire series, and it was insanely good. Possibly one of the best single episodes of any TV this year. And I think that on the strength of that,
that's high praise. That's
which again, we can qualify that by saying, well, I haven't watched that much television to really, for that to have that much meaning. But at the same time,
you've watched enough, yeah.
And it's something that I watched, half a year ago, and it still kicks around in my brain. So Westworld season 2, number 5. What's your number 4? My
number 4 is Maniac. Did you ever see Maniac?
I didn't. See? There's things I didn't see. So Maniac, you got it number 4. Why?
I got it number 4. This is another one that's kind of... this is definitely much different than Barry, but it's very bonkers, and it's off the wall, and I think it's a pretty good headpiece a little bit, just kind of heady, little get you thinking. And I think it's well made, and I think it's well acted, and I think this one's directed by Cary Fukunaga, right? Is his name right?
He Fukunaga. Yeah, he did all of the episodes, I believe.
Yeah, and he's a really talented dude. So yeah, that one's really good. I highly recommend you catch that show because it's pretty good. I enjoyed it.
It's on the list.
It's on the list.
With many other things, it's on the list. No, I really do want to watch that. So it's good to hear some high praise for it. Maybe that will spark some incentive. I don't know. I've got things to watch,
and it's a consistent. I think it's a pretty consistent experience.
Plus, it's a good cast. I mean, I can't speak to their performances, but Emma Stone and Jonah Hill, I like both of those people pretty well.
Yeah, they're good. So they bounce off of each other pretty well, and it deals with unique things and stuff. So it's a cool show. I liked it. A little one-off kind of miniseries. I don't know if it's a miniseries or if they're going to go any further, but it's cool. I like it. What's your number 3, man?
Well, I would like to talk about my number 4 before we get there.
Oh, did we not talk about? No, yeah, we talked about Westworld. I'm sorry, I can't count.
Just skip.
I have this 90-minute IPA here, and it might be,
it's already taking a toll on you. Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
All right. We'll go with that. My number 4 is Netflix's Castlevania season 2.
Ooh, little animated feature.
Yeah, I loved this. I thought it was fucking fantastic. I know I liked season 1, but it was so short. It was kind of like, okay, season 2 was so much more full-fledged and so much more interesting to me that I was surprised by the direction that it went in. It was so very focused on Dracula's like army. Yeah, like the heroes, the trio, they were kind of the B plot for the season, and I thought that was cool. I enjoyed both the A and the B plots, and I thought they were both done really well. And I felt like, the animation was top notch. The dialogue was very snappy, very witty. The violence was appreciated. It felt very appropriate for what it was, and it's clear that Mr. Adi Shankar, who I think developed this show, obviously has ton of passion for the TV show or for the game series that
the source
the
material.
TV show is adapted from, and so it's cool to see a video game adaptation that not only isn't bad but is actually
good.
Really quite good. Yeah, so number 4 for me. I was very impressed. Looking forward to a third season. I assume probably later this year, but that was my number 4. So now we are at number 3, and
Boom.
I will hand it back over to you.
Cobra Kai. It's my number 3 for the year. A YouTube show of all things.
YouTube Red, yeah. Well, actually, is it still YouTube Red? Yeah, it's YouTube Premium now. It was YouTube Red at the time that it was released. So, YouTube's, they're going through some things, I guess.
I don't know. But either way, I didn't see this coming, and
No.
It was really fucking good. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say other than these next shows are these next 3 shows are awesome. And Cobra Kai is like I said, it came out of nowhere, and I was I was expecting I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this quality, that's for sure.
Well, I think maybe that's part of it, is maybe there weren't any expectations for it. I mean, it's a YouTube show, and it's sequel to The Karate Kid. Like,
how good could it be, right?
25 years, 30 years later, like, okay, all right, yeah, okay, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so I think that absolutely played a factor.
Yeah, so I had a lot of fun with that show. It's funny, and yeah, between Barry and Cobra Kai, three comedic shows kind of. They made my list, which is kind of unique. I don't watch a lot of comedy stuff, and I don't think any of these shows are exclusively. I mean, I guess Cobra Kai is probably a little bit more comedic, but
yeah, but there's still certainly
drama beats and stuff in there. So.
Dramatic, elements to it certainly.
But yeah, it's my number 3. What do you got, man?
My number 3 is Barry, season 1.
Oh, you like Barry quite a bit.
I did like Barry quite a bit. If I recall correctly, I believe I was the one that recommended it to you. So
you did.
It was
and
clear
unlike
that I felt pretty strong about it.
I listened to your recommendations.
That is true. Yeah, we can establish that as fact. I'm okay with putting that on the record that I don't follow up on things very often. It's unfortunate, but I had a great time with Barry. Bill Hader is remarkable as Barry himself, and I felt just the whole concept of it is just really just enjoyable. It's good fun. You know, for anyone that doesn't know, Barry, he's a hitman who goes out, I think, to Los Angeles to kill someone. You know, he gets hired to kill someone out there. And I think as he's doing research, you know, he's trying to kind of track his target's movements and stuff like that. He ends up in like an actor's studio type thing, like an acting class.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Wait, hold on! I kind of might like to do this." And
I don't want to be
him
a hitman anymore.
like oscillating between like being a hitman and having to have his hitman responsibilities and being like, "Shit, I want to be an actor now." It's really fun. It hits hard when it needs to hit hard. It's hilarious when it needs to be hilarious. Special shout out to NoHo Hank, who is probably the funniest character on the show.
Is that the guy that
It's the guy with alopecia. He's got no hair.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah.
I think
the
brother might be Chechnyan or something.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
He's great, and so is the head of the guild, the Actors Guild or whatever.
Yeah, Henry Winkler.
Yeah, he's great.
Is amazing. Which he's Fonzie from Happy Days, so that's probably the most recognizable role. But I always loved him in Arrested Development as Barry Zuckerkorn, who's one of the worst attorneys in the world.
Fucking funny.
Which is amazing.
It reminds me of Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, well, I have the worst fucking attorneys. Stephen Root also in this, and also fantastic. So,
who was the big guy? The guy that just wanted to go and beat the fuck out of everybody and shoot everything. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know who it was, but I do know what you're talking about.
He was good. He was good too. The show's gold.
Like all the bit players definitely nailed it, man. Like it was just a really well made show, really funny show, you know, and it's a tight show. It's an 8-episode, half-hour dramedy of sorts, and
that's what it's about, man. Good, tight, it's well delivered material. It's what shows should strive to be.
I agree. So that's why I have it at my number 3. What's your number 2?
Okay, so my top 2 here. Just a little caveat or a little asterisk. I'm fans of the franchises and the established universes and stuff. And I feel like maybe these next 2 might, not to say that they're bad quality or anything else, but they're just they're extensions of something, an established show, and I just enjoy the shows. So number 2 is Expanse. Expanse is really fucking cool this season. They go to new places, and did you watched it all, right, or did you?
I have not watched a single episode from season 3 of The Expanse. I am very sad to say.
Oh, fuck, man. I think I sent you a video though.
I have the Blu-ray, so it's
yeah.
That one is very far on the list. To be fair, I think once season 4, once again, big shout out to Amazon for saving The Expanse. I guess I was part of the reason it might have gotten canceled in the first place, but
yeah, tune in, motherfucker. What's wrong with you?
I did record it, so I don't know if the DVR numbers counted when I I was recording it, so.
Yeah, no, it was
counts for something.
They do some really cool shit in that season, and it's Expanse. It's awesome stuff. So high praise coming in at my number 2. What do you got?
My number 2 is Cobra Kai.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah. So, this. I mean, we talked about it a little bit already. It came out of nowhere, man. YouTube Red. Okay. What does that mean? And
I'll subscribe and cancel. That's fine.
Right. And I was blown away by this show. I watched this show twice. It's might be the only one on my list that I've actually seen multiple times. No, it's a very rewatchable kind of show, but they went to a lot of lengths to give Johnny Lawrence, of all fucking characters from the Karate Kid universe, a serious amount of depth as basically the main character in this. And to have the dynamic between him and Ralph Macchio's Daniel LaRusso as adults, it was really great fun. I felt the new generation they brought in were great. Hawk, shout out to Hawk, who is pretty great. But no, I mean, all the characters were really cool. I mean, Miguel's transition, I thought, was really well handled throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, all the characters had a tremendous
Robbie
amount of growth.
had an arc too. Not only the adults, but the kids. As a new passing of the torch type generation, was really good. All of the kind of nods and stuff given to Mr. Miyagi kind of throughout were all handled really well. So I think it is somewhat a case of when you have so little to no expectations and then something just really comes out of nowhere and just blows you away. Maybe it's overinflated as a result of that. But at the same time, I think that on its own, I think technically it's very well done. I think the martial arts stuff is handled really well. It's acted pretty well. It's clear that the folks that made this and they really wanted to do something instead of just being like, hey, let's just capitalize on this thing that people liked. However long ago.
I feel like a lot of these people don't have a lot of. I mean, they really. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that, to me, anyways, they don't have a lot of acting experience. They're not avid actors in a bunch of shit. Yeah,
not really. I mean, I have definitely never seen any of the younger characters, but even, Ralph Macchio and William Zabka, I don't really know if they've... Ralph Macchio's done a few other things, but, I don't think Zabka, who plays Johnny, I don't think I've seen him in anything outside of the Karate Kid franchise, so, and he was great.
He was awesome.
He was phenomenal, so... I'm season 2 is... I'm really, really excited to see where they go with it. I thought they really knocked it out of the park with Cobra Kai.
Yeah, congrats, YouTube. Yeah. You've made Watch Review Repeats number 2 spot with Colton Brown.
Well, it's been it's an interesting year. I mean, I would never have expected that. I don't even think this was on our fucking radar.
No,
when we were
definitely
talking about things that were coming out, and we almost didn't even cover it. It was like, we'll do this or the other, and we're like, we'll just.
Just do them. Fuck it, we'll do them both.
We ended up doing both. We're like, this is too good to not cover.
I think that's what it was.
I don't care. I don't care what you want to cover, but I'm gonna watch this shit. So it was just kind of like, well, we might as well do it. So, it's number 2. There's still something above it. So number 1, I wonder if we have the same thing here. What's your number 1?
My number 1's Daredevil. The unfortunate conclusion and closing of of a wonderful television show. And I think overall, Daredevil had an awesome season 1, and kind of a mediocre season 2, but then an incredibly strong season 3. Maybe the strongest of the seasons. I haven't seen season 1 or 2 in a long time. But it was a well acted. Well-acted television show. They explored characters, particularly what's her name, Deborah Ann Wolf.
D.A. Wool, Karen Page.
Yeah, the Karen Page. Yeah, they explored her character and And that was awesome. Kingpin had a lot of depth, I think, and Daredevil had a lot of depth. I mean, a tremendous amount of character growth. Character growth is awesome, man. Makes or breaks shows and movies, I think. And I feel like you can get a lot of character growth on a good show because there's so much content to be had there. And they did a really good job of it. What's your number one spot?
As if there was any question. It is, of course, Marvel's Daredevil Season 3, which this was the easiest pick I could have made. 2 through 5, I had to do a little bit of wrestling with it. Number 1, there was no question. I think this is far and away, it's definitely far away, obviously my favorite television show, but I think that this has a lot outside of the fact that I'm a big Daredevil fan, both in terms of the comics, in terms of the previous seasons, his appearances, and I guess appearance in the Defenders. This I think is easily the best season of Daredevil that they've produced, which I think was a high bar to clear. I think season 1's great. I think season 2 is messy, but I enjoyed it more, I think, than season 1. And season 3 is just it's next level for me. The characterization, the growth, as you mentioned, is just wonderful. Matt's journey, kind of trying to become a person again, is interesting. Karen, we dive so much into her backstory, and that was all really, really well handled, really affecting. And then you have the villains. You have Kingpin, who is one of the most menacing villains, I think, in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you want to count this as part of that, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't, who knows at this point.
Right.
And then our boy Poindexter, Bullseye, man. He was amazing. And came out of nowhere. This is a guy, Wilson Bethel is the actor that portrayed him, someone I'm not really familiar with, and he blew me away with his portrayal of that character. And I think the lengths that they went to write that character ended up paying a lot of dividends, I think, as a result of both his performance and kind of what was on the page. And then even some new characters in there. Ray Nadeem, I thought, was a really strong addition to the cast, and Sister Maggie.
Sister Maggie was awesome. I didn't enjoy
fantastic. Her interactions with Matt were great. I mean, all the characters just play so well off each other, and the way it was written, the action sequences. I mean, man, this was the complete package for me.
Those fights were brutal as fuck, especially when he ties those ropes on his wrist, or he does that. Mm-hmm. That's cool. It's so cool. Such a cool TV show, man. And we don't get any more of it. It's closed. It's done.
Yeah, as the end of Daredevil, at least in this current incarnation, maybe we'll see Marvel do something with it in the next few years. Hopefully, and if they do, hopefully they try to bring back as much of this cast as they possibly can. But things don't always work out so neatly. It's as a conclusion, it's leaving on a high note, and
absolutely,
I that I compared to the other Netflix shows that got canceled this year, you'll note that neither Iron Fist nor Luke Cage were in our top 5.
No.
And those kind of leave on like okay. Well, I mean, I would have definitely watched more, and I think that they were setting the stage for more. This one, to me, feels like, they were definitely setting the stage for more, but at the same time, it works enough on its own to just be a satisfying conclusion. Like, you don't want it to be, and I certainly wasn't expecting it to be at the time of watching it. And I don't know that it was necessarily written as such, but it works. I mean, obviously it has to out of necessity, but I think it does work. And I think what Eric Oleson, the third showrunner in 3 seasons for Daredevil, brought to the table was ridiculous. And I'm sad to say that he's not going to get a chance to do something more with the character, at least not at this point in time.
Right, exactly.
That we can talk about.
Not that we know of, right.
So that's our opinions on TV. Would you like to hear
pretty decent year for television overall? I would give television a solid. I would give it a solid 10 out of 10. We've seen some good TVs, man.
We've seen some good TVs. Our listeners have seen some good TVs too. Do you want to know how they felt about TV in 2018?
Yeah, Yeah, I do. I would be slightly curious. Not even slightly. I would be tremendously curious.
All right, so we ran a poll through SurveyMonkey. Unfortunately, I wanted to do something directly through Twitter, through Facebook, because I think we would have gotten more interactions with it. But the problem is, like, Facebook, you can only do a poll with 2 choices, and Twitter, you can only do it with 4 choices, and I'm like, that doesn't really help a whole lot.
Right.
So we were kind of limited by what we did. But we set up a survey, and and survey says that the single TV show that received the highest vote count for 2018, the question was, what was your favorite television show of 2018? Marvel's Daredevil took it.
There we go. Big surprise.
So
not really a big surprise because it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was closely trailed. Second place, there was a couple of votes for The Good Place, which people seem to enjoy that a lot. I've heard good things about that. And The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel over on Amazon, which I've heard is fantastic.
That's supposed to be really good, yeah.
So that got a couple votes. Handmaid's Tale season 2 got a vote as well. And then there were a couple other write-ins. I think My Hero Academia got a shout.
That's a pretty fucking awesome show. I can concur with that. I didn't put any animes on here, but that one's really good. You could also say Dragon Ball Super, which I saw the fucking movie. Did I tell you I saw the Dragon Ball Super movie?
You didn't, but
oh man. All I can say is oh man. Anyways, yeah, great year for TV, man.
And one last shout out to someone wrote in on the other section, Chicago Fire, which I think is a procedural show, but it's a favorite television show. So people like what they like, man. Good for whoever anonymously wrote that in. Appreciate you responding to the survey. So that's what our listeners say. And now it's time to talk about film.
This is
lots of film.
That's it. This is meat and potatoes. Meat and potatoes. Sure tootin' talking about film.
Sure tootin' talking about film. All right, let's kick off our discussion with maybe some of the more negative awards. We don't like to kick things while they're down, but sometimes they just ask for it. We begin with the most negative award that we can hand out, which is the worst film of 2018. Now, I'll start with this. For me, there's been a pretty clear winner for this category since March when it came out, and that, of course, is A Wrinkle in Time for me.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
Now, I would say that Jurassic World is probably worth being part of this conversation for being just an absolute dump piece of shit.
But A Wrinkle in Time is like a whole nother fucking level.
I agree. I think Venom you could throw in the conversation as well. I think it's bad, but not so bad. Not in the way that A Wrinkle in Time is. A Wrinkle in Time is just next level garbage. Incomprehensible. Really just a baffling piece of cinema. One that feels very misguided, I would think, in the sense that you got Ava DuVernay, who, for all intents and purposes, seems to be a very talented filmmaker that churned out just an absolute train wreck. Just something that was just so bad and basically borderline unwatchable.
It's pretty terrible.
I saw it
on
bad.
IMAX. I paid for IMAX.
I don't think I paid for IMAX. So
so bad. It was. I laughed. I wouldn't say this is. I mean, it was a really terrible movie. I think the worst thing that I've seen on an IMAX theater, or just in general, the worst thing that I've ever had to pay for is still probably Inhumans. Like, Inhumans just kind of just pissed me off. Like, I didn't find it humorous at all. This movie was so bad, I laughed, and I at least found pleasure in the fact that it was absolutely fucking terrible, even though I had to pay for it. But, I mean, between Giant Oprah and the Flying Lettuce Monster?
Yeah, look, Charles Wallace. Don't forget about Charles Wallace.
Charles Wallace. Yeah, every other word's Charles Wallace. It's pretty fucking terrible. Pretty terrible. So congratulations, Wrinkle in Time. Watch Review Repeats. Worst film of the year.
Yeah. Oh, man.
When do they have the raspberries? Did they already do the raspberry awards?
I don't know, but I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like it gets as much hate around like the internet as it does here, which I don't know. I cannot fathom anyone thinking this is a good movie.
No,
it blows my mind to consider that. and I will not consider it because it is the worst film of 2018, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Let's move over to the most disappointing film of 2018. Now, this is different. It doesn't have to be a bad film. It just has to be something I think that relative to expectations didn't meet them. You know, maybe you walked in thinking this is going to be the greatest thing in the world, and then you got, it's fine. Or you got, this is going to be okay, and you got, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. And honestly, you could even possibly say that A Wrinkle in Time might fit here in the sense that
we did see those trailers. Kind of excited about the trailers. And
I don't know. I think our inclination towards A Wrinkle in Time, at least if I recall correctly, was that it looks fun, it looks interesting, but there's a very real possibility this is going to be horrible. And so I think that there was at least the notion on the table that it could be bad. And so when it did turn out to be bad, certainly I don't think any of us anticipated it being as bad as it ended up being. It could be that. But in the interest, I would say perhaps you chose it as your selection for this. I didn't pick it for mine.
I didn't pick it for mine.
Okay. And I think it's probably worth mentioning at this point. I like to, diversify my responses. I don't want to have 10 movie winning the same award. So I have kind of a few, this is true of all the awards we're going to talk about, is that I tried to pick a few different things, it really excelled at this one thing. Maybe it wasn't my favorite film for the year, or even something in my top 10. Maybe there was just something so unique, clever, well executed about it that it's on this one thing, this is it. This is the thing. So anyway, that's all to say. Let's talk about most disappointing film. I think I started with worst film. Now, obviously we agreed, but I'm curious, what did you have for your most disappointing film?
My most disappointing film is, and it's, I think for the most part, I think probably the most disappointing film is probably I want to say Cloverfield Paradox. I seem to recall myself being kind of excited about that movie. The God Particle. I think it was called The God Particle at one time. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, it's cool. I'm real excited about it. And then I watched it, and it was just kind of stupid. And it wasn't that it wasn't like the worst thing I've ever seen. But it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. And a close contender for most disappointing movie would be Solo, because it's a Star Wars movie. I want it to be more than what it was. But at the same time, I find it hard to give it that award because of all the production issues that they had. I kind of anticipated it not being the best. But I would say Cloverfield Paradox is probably the most disappointing one. If I had to nominate something, that's what I would nominate. What about you? What do you got?
Well, I thought for sure you would not come up with the Cloverfield Paradox. That's what I picked, actually.
Is it really?
Yeah. I would.
Holy shit.
There's a few things. I don't think there was a runaway winner here of I was just so disappointed by this, but there was a handful. I had to name some of the other ones I had in the conversation. I had Bohemian Rhapsody, which I don't think you saw, but
no.
It's also disappointing in the context of people somehow deluding themselves into thinking it's a good movie. That bothers me, but that's kind of external to the film itself, which I find thoroughly mediocre. But I don't know that I ever had super high expectations for it, so I don't know that it really qualifies too much there. Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald, kind of the same thing, where my expectations were probably middle of the road, and I got lower than that, certainly, but not so egregious as to be the most disappointing. And then my other one was The Predator, which I didn't hate, but I found it colossally stupid and somewhat disappointing from that standpoint, especially the whole last sequence with the Predator suit was just the dumbest shit in the world. I think if you excised that one scene, honestly, I probably wouldn't even thought of it. But I picked Cloverfield Paradox because I think that I really, really enjoy the first Cloverfield. I think it's great, but I think 10 Cloverfield Lane is
fucking incredible.
One of the best films that came out whatever year that it did come out. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And this one had the hype machine behind it. I think that's why my expectations were high for it. Not just because I like the first 2 Cloverfield movies. They're all they're doing their own thing. That's all well and good. It's kind of an anthology type approach.
But this one's just kind of fucking...
Sort of.
It's like they sprinkled it in there kind of like haphazardly, I think, a little bit.
It's like there was God Particle, which was probably a fairly interesting, if not mediocre kind of movie, and then they just put some Cloverfield stickers on top of it, and it just, none of it worked. Like the connections they tried to forge between the universe was all real dumb and didn't make sense, and there's like a bunch of Cloverfield monsters at the end, and I'm just like, what is happening here? Like there didn't seem to be any sort of internal logic to any of it. And I really like the setting. Like I like space station type things, weird shit's happening. I liked the whole vibe of it, but I just found that on the whole, it's the connections it tried to make, like the tangible connections to the broader universe, didn't make sense. It would have been better, I think, just being its own thing, with some thematic connection or something, because like 10 Cloverfield Lane really has nothing to do with the first one, and that was good. It was fine. I don't think anyone had any issues with that. And this one just felt like it just did too much, and I think the reason it was most disappointing is because it had, it was like stealth dropped right after the Super Bowl. Like Netflix bought the rights. We're putting it out right now. Like it was just like a really cool media thing. Yeah. And then it was just like, well, there's a reason Paramount probably sold those rights for $50 million. They're probably feeling real good about themselves because almost certainly they saw a cut of it and were like, ooh, this ain't going to make much money, is it? Let's see if Netflix will buy it. They got lots of money, right?
And they bought it. And I mean, like I said, I didn't think it was, I would watch it again. Somebody wanted to come over and watch it, I would watch it.
It's not the worst movie.
I like you say, coming off of 10 Cloverfield Lane, and you got this sci-fi film called The God Particle, where crazy shit starts to happen when you're trying to find the God Particle, or whatever the synopsis was before it was released. It sounds fucking really cool. And then, and then it comes out and it's just kind of, okay. Like, you're not terrible, but at the same time, it could be a lot better.
Yeah.
So
anyway, well, let's go to the flip side of that. Most surprising film of 2018. I have a feeling we have a consensus winner here. Then you can obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Bumblebee, right?
Yes, definitely Bumblebee. 100% Bumblebee. 110% Bumblebee. I never thought that I would go and see a Transformers movie in theaters, so it's a good thing. I think you went and saw it first, right?
Yeah, I saw this one twice, actually, as it turned out. But yeah, I had to screen it and be like, look, dude, you gotta maybe want to go see it. and that's fair. I mean, you've been burned probably 5 times, or I guess in your case, I think we talked about it, you'd only seen really two and a half,
quick, right?
But it was enough to know, like, not for me, fam. And that was very fair. I clocked out after 4, which was 3.5 too many, and then Bumblebee was just this
John Cena Bumblebee exclusive almost movie. I don't know about that. It sounds like it's going to be total shit.
Yeah, you know what? I actually just went back before we recorded today, because I was curious to hear what our thoughts were on Bumblebee, because I was trying to remember. I was like, I'm pretty sure we dogged it pretty good in the lead up to it, and then like the trailers came out and we're like, oh, this doesn't look that bad, and then we saw it and we're like, shit, it was actually good, But we went in on it on our like look ahead to 2018 episode. We were like train wreck, dog shit, piece of shit, like you name it. Like we were hurling, and like we spent like a good 2 minutes just laughing at John Cena. I was like, this man can't even fit into a suit. How's he gonna be in a movie? Like that was the extent of our conversation. I was just like, because I actually had something else that I was gonna go with, and I was just like, oh man, our expectations were so low for this. Like,
yeah.
It's not even that it turned out to be like, oh, it wasn't half bad. Right?
It turned out to be really fucking good.
It was legitimately fucking good in its own right. I don't think it's the best of the year or anything like that, But damn, it was really good. And Haley Steinfeld is a fucking star, man. John Cena was fucking cool, man.
Yeah, it was a great movie. Really great movie.
And the robot action was fucking great. Easily the best we've ever seen in cinema. I was a big fan of Bumblebee. Absolutely. I think there's a few others that could get thrown into this conversation too.
Aquaman would be my runner-up.
Aquaman, yeah, I think that's another one. I also think you said Solo could have been one of your most disappointing. I actually felt the other way. I think for me, it leans more towards the most surprising in the sense that we knew that the production process was a big clusterfuck, and the fact that they churned out a product that I thought was pretty solid to good was impressive. Not my favorite Star Wars movie. It was my favorite Star Wars movie that came out in 2018. But
yeah, I mean, if we're gonna have a Star Wars movie, okay, I mean, Solo is not bad by any means, but I mean, it's certainly not the best. But I have no problem at all with a Star Wars movie coming out every year, which I think Solo's changed that because of the reception or whatever. But I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and then just a couple others to shout out. Ready Player One. I thought it was solid. Thought that was kind of surprising. That one definitely could have turned out to be dog shit, I thought. And then Upgrade, which I think you slept through. I don't think you...
I did sleep through that one. We're not going to talk about that.
I don't think you've seen it since or attempted to watch it since.
No.
But that was great. That was like a really tight sci-fi thriller. I will say this, as far as Upgrade is concerned. So it stars Logan Marshall Green, who some people might look at a picture of this man and think, that's Tom Hardy. It's not, in fact, Tom Hardy. It is bootleg Tom Hardy. But Upgrade is effectively the same movie as Venom, except it is 700 times better. So if you want to watch a Venom movie, watch Upgrade. I'm serious. Like it's him integrating with like this computer chip that can control his body. And so it's a very similar thematic concept as Venom, except it preceded it by half a year. But Upgrade, man, it's I had a ton of fun with it. I mean, it's kind of like a low budget sci-fi thriller, and that's probably kind of a niche audience that it's attracting.
I definitely snored through the whole thing.
But you'd definitely be into it. I think it's worth a second look for you. I mean, it was. I think we went to like a 10:00 showing after you had worked that day or whatever. So it was understandable.
We ended up going to Philly the next day, didn't we, or something like that?
I don't recall, but yeah, I think you're right. So,
anyways,
yes. So I picked Bumblebee just because, like I said, our expectations were just in the basement.
They were very low.
But yeah. So let's move on to Best Animated Film.
I had a hard time with this one. It was very, 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 very close.
All right. Well, what did you end up picking?
I ended up picking Spider-Verse. I thought Spider-Verse was incredible.
If I may, was your runner-up Isle of Dogs?
Yes.
Okay. We had the same. We came to the same conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, I teetered there for I don't know, a solid half hour. It's one of the last things that I picked. As far as all these, across the topics go. Yeah, so I picked Spider-Verse only because of the diversity of the art. And that's why I picked it.
Okay. Yeah.
You have you can't say one bad thing about the attention to detail or anything in Isle of Dogs because it's absolutely astounding. It's incredible. But Spider-Verse, it employed multiple different art styles for each different dimension, from all the characters, where they came from and everything. And for that simple reason alone, I had to find a reason to pick one or the other, and that was the reason I picked Spider-Verse's animated film.
Yeah, that's a good call. I actually didn't even think about it in those terms, but it kind of makes sense. You're talking about Best Animated Film. Like, well, let's think about the actual animation. And yeah, and Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse was fucking revolutionary, and
yeah,
like the
incredible
way that it used and the way that it felt like a comic book really brought to life, man. Like the colors, just, I mean, it was a visually stunning movie from the beginning to the end, and one that I think definitely qualifies it for being the best animated film. So, yeah, Isle of Dogs, good close runner-up. I thought that was a great movie. Really enjoyed it. But Spider-Man was yeah, even if you're just going off of the technical merits alone, I think that, yeah, Spider-Man is maybe more impressive because of how much it had to do and, pulled off. So,
right.
Yeah, might have some more things to say about it in the future. I don't know.
Ooh, do you really?
Superhero film. Best superhero film. Should I start? I guess technically you started last time.
Yeah, you can start with this one. What do you got?
So I think if you delineated this into live action versus animated, I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse would definitely take the animated. I think it's better than Incredibles 2. to be the other superhero film that qualifies as
Oh
an
yeah,
animated
no,
film.
I don't think I don't think there's debating that.
I think live action wise, Black Panther would be my pick. But I think that in general, if you take just best superhero film in a bubble, put them all in there together and pull one out of the hat, Spider-Man or the Spider-Verse is my pick.
Wow.
I really enjoyed this film.
No, it's really fucking good. It really good. Really made me cry.
There's a lot to this movie, and it's going to come up again, so I'm not going to get super in depth on everything. But it's not just one superhero here. It's not just one superhero that we see here. All the superheroes we see are great in the sense of Miles Morales is fantastic. Peter Parker, the Peter Parkers that we see are all fantastic, and all the other Spider characters they brought in are great. I mean, you got fucking Spider-Gwen, making the big time. That means a lot to me. Spider-Ham, man, fucking Spider-Ham's a ton of fun. Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, like it was so much fun. And as a superhero film, all of it just coalesced so perfectly that I mean, it was a tough year. I mean, Avengers came out this year too. Ant-Man and the Wasp came out this year too. Like, there's a lot of good movies that came out here. Shit, I mean, Aquaman, throw it in the bunch. Really,
it's true. It's
certainly worse. Certainly worse than most of these, but it's not. Yeah, as a superhero film, it's pretty good in its own right, I would say. But
sure.
So it's been a good year for superheroes in general. I feel like we've been able to say that mostly bolstered by Marvel's success over the past decade. But
this one's it's a Sony year, right? Well, yeah.
Well,
awesome.
Venom.
Well, not. I mean, Sony's getting the best pick though, which is
that's just not a usual occurrence, I would say. Yeah,
right.
So Spider-Verse is what I ended up picking. How about you?
I picked Black Panther. I picked Black Panther because of what's the? I really, really, really like Black Panther. As you know, I am the Black Panther. I'm not the Black Panther, but that's what I said on the episode. A little callback.
So recall.
No, but the amount of reach, which is, I mean, you have to look at this independently of the film, I suppose, but the reach that this film had is ridiculous. The cultural impact that I think Black Panther is going to have for years to come is it's worth mentioning. I think. I think the production. I think that the message. I think a lot of different things about this movie will have cultural impacts for a long time. Yeah. The representation. For somebody, if you were watching this as a young kid, I think it's incredible. And I think it means a lot to a lot of people. Not only that, but it was a really fucking awesome made movie. I really, really, really liked it. And Spider-Verse is an incredible movie too. I think incredible for different reasons than Black Panther, but I think overall, like you said, if you were to bunch everything together, I think the best superhero one goes to Black Panther. My personal opinion. Yeah.
Well, in that case, I think it's time that we transition into the technical awards that we have to recognize for 2018. So we've expanded our music categories a little bit. So we'll start with best original score, which we did do last year. And I guess it would be my turn. I had a few contenders for this.
Ooh, what'd you get? Tell me about it.
So I thought Annihilation had an amazing score. Ben Salisbury, Jeff Barrow. I think particularly the track "The Alien" towards the end of the movie is like one of the craziest fucking things in the world, and I love that.
Yeah,
if the whole movie was like that, I would have picked it. But at the same time, that track is so effective because the rest of the movie's not like that. So that it's kind of a
it's like a
weird
dynamic thing, right?
I also thought Black Panther had a fantastic score. Ludwig Göransson. I really enjoyed that. My pick is one. It's one of the few movies for me. I guess really all three of these movies, including the one I'm about to talk about, the score rather was something that stuck out to me as I was watching it, and I feel like that has to be a qualification. It's kind of one thing to enjoy it after the fact when you listen to it, but in the moment, if you really, really enjoy it, I think that means so much more.
For sure, definitely.
So my pick actually was If Beale Street Could Talk, score by Nicholas Britell. I was blown away by the score as I was watching this film. There's a lot of usage of stringed instruments in it, and there was so much character added to the movie by the music. It made you feel emotions. I know there was like sweeping moments in it, kind of were somewhat uplifting. It's not really an uplifting movie. Let's put it that way. But
I never saw that movie. What's the premise of that one? Did we talk about this before?
Yeah, you asked me the same question before, but so for those not familiar with it, including yourself, If Beale Street Could Talk is based off of a novel by James Baldwin, and it's about a young African-American woman who she gets pregnant from her lover, who ends up getting falsely accused of rape and thrown into prison.
Oh, man.
And so basically the movie's her like trying to clear his name with the help of her family and, grapple with the fact that she's pregnant and she's expecting their child. So it's a heavy movie. It's absolutely a heavy movie. But there's moments in the score particularly where it lets you kind of revel in the emotions and like the relationship between, because it goes between two different kind of timelines where it's him in jail versus him, like them kind of forming the relationship together. And so when it wants to be emotional, the score really, really emphasizes that. And then when it goes into darker territory, the score feels really oppressive, and in a way that it generates that type of response where you're just like, fuck, like you feel, I don't know, man. It
sounds really potent for sure.
Yeah, I was impressed with it. Went back and listened to the score a little bit after the fact too, and I was just like, it's got to be this, man. Like it's got to be like there's some good scores. Isle of Dogs had another one, good one. Alexandre Desplat, but this was the one. I feel
like I'm doing myself a big disservice by not have seen this movie yet. I know I was scrolling through the Facebook either last night or at work or this morning or what, I can't remember exactly when it was. But they had that strumming my pain with his fingers. You know that song? Mm-hmm. And it was like a little trailer deal. I don't know if that's the real trailer for the movie or not, but I think I know I saw that on Facebook. It's like, damn, there's that movie again. I keep hearing about it. And now you're talking about the score being better than Isle of Dogs, and I feel like I have to go see it now.
Yeah. So what did you end up picking for this?
I ended up picking Isle of Dogs.
Okay. It sounded like that was the direction you were heading with that, but I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, no. This has been my favorite score since I've seen it. Since maybe before I saw the movie, and I'm not quite sure. Heavy use of drums. Mm-hmm. And I had somebody who was over at my house, and they were spending the night, and I was like, I'm just going to turn on some music to fall asleep, because I fall asleep with the soundtrack almost all the time, probably at least once a week, since I don't know, it's been a staple this year for sure. And they thought I was listening to sacrificial music, kind of made me feel kind of weird.
It's just an animated movie about dogs that talk.
But yeah, no, incredible soundtrack, or incredible score, I should say, to use the technical term. But
yeah, well,
I think I picked this fella last time too, or maybe you picked him last year. I think I picked him last year
for The Shape of Water,
and I picked the fella that passed away, I believe, or what he. 2049. I picked 2049.
You picked 2049, which I don't think Johansson ended up working on that. I think he did, but then he didn't. Was
that what it was? Okay.
So I think it was Hans Zimmer and Wallfish. I think maybe Benjamin Wallfish, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. But this year, it's going to this fella for sure. Now, for best original soundtrack, however,
yes.
I'm going to pick another one that I've been listening to. It's the only one I've actually purchased. It's the only CD I've purchased in a very, very long time. I'm going to pick Black Panther. I thought the Black Panther soundtrack was amazing. Very, very good. Very good soundtrack.
Yeah. Same here. Black Panther.
Same there. Wow. Okay.
Best original soundtrack. Like Stars Born had a great soundtrack. Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse also a great soundtrack, but Black Panther, man, like that shit's been on regular rotation since February.
Yeah.
Most CDs don't have that sort of longevity, with them, and there's so many fucking like. I don't think there's a bad track on there, honestly. Like, there's certain things that I'm like, I'm feeling more this, so I'll play that. But it's all you could listen to this, start to finish. You don't skip a track. You don't need to skip a track. Like, why would you do that? It's phenomenal. And it's something I think for me in a few years' time, if I cue it up, it'll conjure like the memories of like blasting that and like just driving out to go see Black Panther in IMAX. And I think that's cool. Cool. I think it's cool to have that kind of memory associated with it, man. Yeah, I love this. Highly recommend the Black Panther soundtrack. Kendrick Lamar obviously very heavily involved, but there's some other tracks with some other artists on there, and they're all great. Wish there was more of it in the film itself. I think that's my biggest complaint, and that's external to the soundtrack itself. I wish they used more of it.
I don't know though, that score. Black Panther was definitely a runner-up for score.
That's true.
I thought it was a culturally appropriate score, much like Isle of Dogs is too. A lot of Japanese influence, a lot of African influence in Black Panther, and it was fucking cool. It was really cool. Black Panther. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say Black Panther is a really cool film. Really cool film. Anyways, I'm getting piped up again. What did you get for best original song?
So I went with the spreading the love approach here, in the sense that I picked Beale Street for score, I picked Black Panther for soundtrack, and so I wanted to diversify a little bit. So I ended up going with Shallow from A Star Is Born.
Okay.
The duet between Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. I don't know, man. They put it in Dolby Cinema for a week, so I watched the movie again very recently within the past couple weeks.
Oh man, bless your heart. Your heart hurt.
Shallow, less than it did the first time.
Okay,
because you know what's coming, so it mitigates it, I think, to some extent. But that moment it's a fantastic moment in the movie itself. But I think just that song is.
It's the quintessential Star Is Born song, right?
I think so, yeah, and I think it's great, and I think it's an amazing song in its own right. So I went with that because it's a good showcase for both of the talents involved in it. So
that's a good reason to pick it. I have a little hyphen or a little slash next to this. It's not really a hyphen, I guess, but I have I'll Never Love Again, which is also A Star Is Born,
right.
And then / Shallow. I thought Shallow was really good. I just remember sitting in theaters and I'll Never Love Again came on the theater. I've only seen it that one time, and I kind of like lost my shit a little bit, started snotting on myself and just fucking crying.
There's some real oomph to it.
Yeah. And but Shallow is really cool too. And looking this up, it's worth mentioning that I think Lady Gaga had a hand in writing a lot of these songs. And she's an incredible lyricist, apparently. I don't know a lot about Lady Gaga, but I know that she was involved in writing these songs, and if that has anything to say about her, and she's an incredible actress as well. We find that out, but she's a very talented woman, and I think it's worth mentioning that the star not only sung those songs, but she also had a hand in writing them, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, guy, I feel kind of somber now thinking about that movie. It kind of messes with my heart a little bit. It was a really sad movie. Yeah,
it's the kind of movie that, like, I didn't want to go listen to the soundtrack after I'd watched it. I'm like, I don't want to relive that. I had to have time away from it.
I haven't listened to any of that. I haven't listened to any of those songs since I walked out of the theater.
You don't want to. You're like, no. Shit. You think you know that it's so good. But you don't want to like put yourself in that position. Like you're just like, I know what's gonna happen. I can't do it. So and that's a testament to, well, perhaps the film itself, as maybe we'll discuss further at some point. Best original screenplay. I think it's your turn. What'd you have for best original screenplay?
Okay, so I kind of went on a limb here. I picked Sorry to Bother You. I picked Sorry to Bother You because I felt this was an incredibly original, fucking really off the wall, crazy, well made movie. And spoiler warning for other things. It doesn't really come up a whole lot in many of my other nominations here. But it's a movie that needed to be mentioned, I think, just because of its originality. And I think that originality stems from the screenplay. And I enjoyed the hell when I watched the movie. It's definitely very different. It's probably not for everybody. But to me, I thought it was authentic. I thought it was a story that it was a multifaceted story, and the writer had something to tell, and he pushed it out, and it was well made, and I really enjoyed. I thought the screenplay was awesome. I thought it was really cool. So, best original screenplay goes to Sorry to Bother You.
Going out on a limb, huh?
Yeah. What'd you pick?
Well, I think that would be. I think that's less true of a statement, given that it's actually what I picked as well.
Did you pick it as well? Holy shit!
Yeah, I thought maybe I was going out on a limb. I didn't know. I thought maybe I'd catch you off guard with it. Sorry to bother you. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have to add much to what you said. It puts the original and best original screenplay. Like, this is a fucking bonkers movie, but you can tell that Boots Riley, who wrote this, directed the film as well. Like, dude had like a vision, and God damn it, he put it on paper and he filmed it, man, and he filmed the shit out of it because this is a fucking cool ass movie. I mean, yeah, it's absolutely insane. Third act is gonna split audiences that are already in at that point. But man, it's just such a unique voice that he had with carving this movie.
Sure.
I don't know, man. Like it's easily worth recognition. I don't think there's a movie anything close to it in terms of originality that came out in 2018. Like there's some fantastic films that came out, but this is so out there that like it's
and it's not out there like it's the material is out there, and how it's presented.
I think the way it presents material that hits on something deeper.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was looking for. And yeah, it's really fucking cool, man. It's really cool movie.
Yeah. It's a good shout. So I'm enjoying some commonality here. I said Cloverfield, I didn't expect you to have. Didn't expect you to have.
Yeah, we have that one
there,
too.
So.
Wow.
So we've had some things come up in common here.
Yeah, for sure. What's the next one?
Best adapted screenplay, which I can firmly guarantee you will not match my answer on this one.
Okay.
It is If Beale Street Could Talk by Barry Jenkins.
A lot of praise for this movie, man.
James Baldwin.
Wow.
This I thought was a really elegantly constructed screenplay in terms of how it structured the story of the movie. And like I said, it has those two timelines and it kind of bounces back and forth, and it makes some of the moments just feel that much more impactful because of the way it's laid out in that very meticulous manner. I don't know how it was presented in the novel. I don't know if it was kind of written in that same way. But it was clear to me that Barry Jenkins, who previously wrote and directed Moonlight a couple of years ago, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture,
which I need
after
to see
that whole
too.
After that whole snafu with the presentation, Moonlight was fantastic, and it's clear that even if this was less personal project for Barry Jenkins, it's clear that he had a great personal connection to that material, and he owned it in terms of just like. Again, I can't technically speak on how well it adapts it, but I can say that it's the best screenplay that was taken from something that was basically, already made, and
I gotcha. I understand.
Yeah, I'm not wording good right now, but
you sound a little bit like me. How's it feel not be able to find your words?
Well, sometimes I was just taken aback by the film, and it was such a beautiful film, is what it was.
Would I be a sobbing mess if I watched this movie?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean it's.
Or would I just be like, holy shit, just super heavy?
Probably somewhere in between those. I don't think it's like such a dark and depressing experience throughout most of it. But it's. I think by the time the end happens, you're just kind of like, shit. Yeah. So it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't leave you on the happiest note. I will say as much, but it's
a lot of praise though. I mean, that's what 2 so far, 2 or 3 nominations.
Yeah, I think that's 2. I think I gave it the original score nod as well. So
yeah, man. All right. Well, I gotta I gotta get out there and watch it if it's still in theaters.
Yeah. So what did you have for adapted screenplay?
Adapted screenplay for me was A Star Is Born. And this is just it's an incredible movie. This is what, the third remake, second or third?
I think it's the third. Well, I guess second remake, but the third version of it.
Third, okay, yeah. So, I can't speak to how they adapted it from those original movies, or the movies that came before it. But it was brought on by previous films, and I thought they adapted it incredibly well. Well, I can't say that. I know that they adapted it incredibly well. But
that's what I just said for If Beale Street, so I'm okay with allowing that. I mean, it's in its own thing. You're like, this is so fucking good, and then you're like, well, it was adapted from something, so now it fits this category.
Right, exactly.
Like that's kind of how I looked at it,
Yeah. So that was my pick. So there's that. I am curious. Did you just started the screenplay? Did you start with screenplay? You did, right?
We've knocked out both the screenplays, so now we're on to best sound design.
Sound design. We're getting into these next few categories. I really enjoy talking about.
Is this your shit? Your shit?
Yeah, this is my shit. I like these next three ones a whole lot. So sound design. I picked First Man. That's what I picked. And with a runner-up to A Quiet Place. Quiet Place has to be mentioned just because of the use of silence, which is something that you don't have a lot of in movies. But First Man, because of the use of the actual sound itself, it was so incredibly tense all the time. Anytime they were anywhere near a fucking spaceship, it was tense. And
strapping those fuckers in tin cans and shooting them off into space.
Yeah,
man.
like you have from the sound alone. It's one thing to visually see that they're strapped into essentially what is a trial and error fucking rocket, right? They don't know what's going to happen. They've never done this before, but it's another thing to have the sounds associated with the creaks and the screws and the rivets and everything. Just the whole sound of it all. It's incredible. And I haven't seen the movie more than once, and so that would put me, haven't seen it in several months at least, right? How many months has it been? Do you know roughly?
That would have been October.
October, yeah. But I remember being authentically blown away just by the use of sound, and for that reason, it's my best sound design.
Yeah. So, First Man was my first pick. I ended up changing it, I will say. It was my first inclination, I should say. So I should probably expound a little bit on what sound design actually means. So in terms of the Academy Awards, in terms of the Oscars, there's not a quote-unquote sound design award. There's actually a sound mixing and a sound editing. So I think that there's something kind of different there. So I think if you split it like that, I think sound editing, I think First Man would probably take it. But I ended up going with your runner-up, which was A Quiet Place, as my best sound design. I kind of cribbed because I think you used Mother last year, and it was kind of, it's kind of the same philosophy where it's almost the lack of sound that drives the movie, and so if that doesn't work, then the movie doesn't work, and so that's kind of why I ended up taking it as my pick.
It's with between those two picks, right? Because I mean that was my very close second pick. You have a movie that's very loud. And it uses that the audible noises for tension, and then A Quiet Place is the polar opposite of that, where they use the silence for the tension. And I think that's a really cool dynamic for two movies, right? I mean, they're complete opposites of each other, and that's really fucking cool. Really cool year for sound design, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Also, shout out to Roma, which I thought really cleverly used like a 3D sound kind of design to it, where there's like, you sit in a car and you're in the front seat of a car and you have conversations happening behind you, and those are only fed to the rear speakers. Like I feel like most movies don't really tend to do that a whole lot.
That's a good pick. That's a cool pick. Yeah. Okay.
I felt like that one really cleverly used that. I think the issue with that is unless you have a home theater setup, it's a movie that's basically on Netflix, and so you kind of have to have a good speaker setup, which I know you do. Yours is better than mine.
No, that's a good.
But unless
that,
you have that, then I think that effect is lost on you, and I think that's unfortunate. But I think I was really kind of impressed with the way that was handled.
Yeah, I mean, specifically in Roma, they spit. Like, for example, if a character is to the back right, like if you're driving in the car, like you say, if one of the kids is in the back right seat, that audio was specifically coming from that speaker. Like, it's more so than a lot of other movies do. Like, I feel like they don't isolate sounds to specific speakers in the way Roma did. So I feel like that's it.
I feel like surround sound's more just like ambient noise.
Exactly.
Like, and some cars driving around in the background, but not like dialogue usually doesn't seem to get isolated like that.
Yeah, no. So I feel like if your speakers aren't timbered correctly, I feel like a lot of that stuff might be distracting. But I feel like in a proper setup, Roma would be definitely an appropriate choice. I bet in a theater setting, it's pretty incredible, the sound in that movie. And is that a natural? No, nope. Never mind. Okay, well. We're just gonna keep going.
Okay.
I was gonna try to transition naturally into another topic, but
all right. Well, we'll get there eventually. We're gonna get to best editing first, of course. So I think this is my go. I went with First Man. I went with First Man for best editing.
Okay. Yeah. Can see.
And it was kind of. Yeah, it was kind of. It's almost cheating in some ways, but I was also thinking of the sound editing and the way that. Like anytime anything happens, it's so impactful and like it keeps you just in that moment.
Yeah.
But I also felt in terms of just the structure of the film itself, it's one that lets you be in the moment. So whether it's any of the sequences in the spacecraft, like you talked about it, the tension, you feel that tension. It's because of the sound, because of the visuals, all kind of coupled together. But even the quieter moments in the film, and just the way that it's constructed. I mean, just from a broad perspective, I think the progression that you see, from the dark times and Neil Armstrong's life, and the eventual resolution of that when you have that whole fucking spectacular lunar sequence. I felt like. Since I gave A Quiet Place sound design, I almost felt like I gotta reckon. Like First Man's such a technically well-made movie. Like Damien Chazelle and company are fucking goddamn wizards.
Yeah.
So I'm like, they deserve some sort of recognition. And it's not my favorite film that he's done. I think Whiplash and La La Land are probably
those are really really good movies.
More my shit. But like, and
this
First
was a
Man,
really
unfortunately,
good movie, though. I thought it was a really good movie.
Oh yeah, I thought it was phenomenal, and I also wish that I had the chance to see it more recently. Comes out, I think, like a couple days after recording this, and I'm like, well, that's not going to work.
That'll be a 4K Blu-ray purchase.
But I will absolutely purchase this movie in 4K. It's
a visually
stunning movie that demands that format, I would say. So that was my pick for best editing. What'd you have?
I had Hereditary. Hereditary was it was a hellacious ride, and I think you owe a lot of it to the editing of the film. The way that there's one particular moment where you have the mom wailing in the background, and things like the scream perpetuates, right? Like things continue to happen, but she's continuing to wail. And I don't know. The tension of this movie is ridiculous. And like I said, I think it all boils back down to that the editing. Sound design in this movie is worth mentioning. Cinematography in this movie is worth mentioning. Like the complexity of the shots. There's a lot of technical aspects of this movie that could be that are worth mentioning. I mean, ultimately, I personally don't want to, like you, I don't want to give 3 topics, 1 movie. But I think in a nutshell, I think you can owe a lot of the praise that Hereditary has had, I think is due to the nature that the movie was crafted in and molded and ultimately edited in, cut and pasted in. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's a good pick. That's another one I'd like to rewatch. I haven't seen it since it came out.
That's a brutal fucking movie. That's
you gotta prepare yourself before you dive right in.
Absolutely.
That's fair. Best visual effects. What What came up for you? What was on your board for best visual effects? Oh, Annihilation. All right.
Annihilation got best visual effects. This is a hard one for me. I feel like this year's been full of. I think as CGI and everything gets more. It's just more and more evident. I mean, like Marvel's completely replacing characters in movies. It just becomes. I don't know. There's a lot of movies that have visual effects, right? Just about all movies have visual effects. But I feel like in Annihilation, I feel like that it was the visual effects of Annihilation added to the complexity of the movie in a way that a lot of other movies don't leverage that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of nuanced things you can do with visual effects, and you can do a lot of really over-the-top things with visual effects as well, but I think it added to the storytelling in a major way with Annihilation. So that's why I picked it. I mean, the Shimmer is 100% visual effects, and
no, that they actually went there and filmed there.
Right. Well, I guess you have a point. That's true. But I don't know. The entire setting of the movie, in a way, is visual effects and whatnot. And I think maybe because I rewatched it, maybe it might be like a recent thing. But at the end of the day, it's kind of hard. Like, see, I kind of wanted to pick Isle of Dogs for visual effects, right? But it's like I don't think that's like an appropriate use of visual effects. Like, that's not a correct use of the nomination, is it? Because it's technically animation, right?
Yeah. I think if we didn't have an animation category, you could have an argument. But I think since we do, it'd be hard to split them like that.
Yeah. So, anyways, I ended up picking Annihilation. So, what do you got for visual effects?
I had two big ones for me that came up, and for very different reasons. So my runner-up ended up being First Man.
Okay.
Because I think the First Man's a kind of movie where it's hard to see the seams. Like, it's just it's hard to tell like where the line is drawn between practical effects and visual effects. I think that's fantastic. Obviously, we can say they didn't go to the moon and shoot there.
But it's the
so
best
obviously
use
there's
of
a lot of
effects.
visual effects, and I think I think that understated, kind of in the background approach, is really something in and of itself. But I almost think in some ways it might be even more impressive when your entire movie is nothing but basically visual effects, and everyone knows that it's visual effects, and then they can still buy into it and not even think like, oh, that looks bad, or that looks bad. And so I picked Avengers: Infinity War for best visual effects, because it's a movie
that's pretty good. It's a good pick. It's a lot of visual effects.
Is literally nothing but visual effects with some assholes on a green screen and maybe some sets here and there.
And half the time the characters on screen aren't actually there at all.
Right. And its main character of sorts, Thanos, is literally a mocap character who is pretty lifelike. I think in terms of like depicting like the realism of like Thanos' skin, like dude's got like stubble and shit, man. Like I don't think that there's been that much detail like put into a humanoid kind of visual effects character the way that Thanos was depicted. And I know I picked Planet of the Apes last year, and I stand by that. But Thanos is a big purple alien great boy, and it's just kind of like there's if Thanos doesn't work, he's Steppenwolf,
Yeah, no, it's very true. That's
what could happen. And I think outside of like one or two shots here and there where Thanos looks slightly off, looks fucking phenomenal. And then that's in the context of everything else. Again, like most of the backgrounds are all just CG. Spider-Man is CG through his entire
Doctor Strange clapping his hands and bringing all those
like
arms down.
All that shit is like nothing but CG. And like I said, you know that it's CG. There's no part of your brain that's just like, oh my god, I can't believe they managed to find Thanos and bring it. Like, no, like that never happens. But the fact that you know that and then you can still accept it as like, that looks pretty fucking good.
That might be,
I think that's impressive.
You could also have the argument for Ready Player One, because Ready Player One was a movie completely constructed in And I mean, it's completely animated, almost. You know?
Yeah, I suppose.
And you completely forget that you're watching an animated movie. You get into it.
I think the difference there is that the animated world is not intended to be lifelike. There's a component to it that's
I see what you're saying. You're not blending the two.
It's supposed to look like a video game, and it does.
And then that's
not a bad thing.
But you just get adapted to watching an animated thing.
You definitely buy into it. I agree with you on that sense. I just think Avengers is more technically impressive in the sense that, like, no, this is supposed to emulate like real life shit. Like,
I understand.
You don't watch it and think that's a video game. There's parts where you can watch like, all right, you know.
Good call. Call.
So that's why I went with that. But Annihilation's a good nod. I think there's a lot of really spectacular effects work in that. I just think in terms of scale, and granted, Avengers Infinity War's budget was probably at least 10 times
higher, right?
That of Annihilation. But I think they put their money to good use. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, that was a good call.
Best production design. I had one. There was really only one thing I wanted to shout out for production design. It's Black Panther.
Hey, we agree again.
Did we just become best friends?
We just became best friends, man.
Yeah, like the design of Wakanda, the fucking costume design, man.
Costume design's where it's at.
Unreal.
That's what
movie,
I was gonna. That was my number one call. I watched a production thing where they were talking about what went into the costume design and stuff, and it was just remarkable the amount of inspiration that those people had when they put this movie together. It's incredible. It's an incredible movie.
Yeah. Yes, you're not wrong. But it was clearly a labor of love from Ryan Coogler, Marvel Studios, Feige, everyone.
Each and every cast member of that movie, I feel like was in it to win it. Each and every one of them. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, it was a fucking good movie, man.
Yeah, a real good movie.
I rewatched this one maybe a month or so. I
rewatched it about a month ago. Yeah,
and it still stands up. You know, it's like. It's such. It was actually my first 4K movie that I watched on my TV. I'll have you know.
Was it really?
I was just like, this is the shit right here. Yeah. I mean, just the visuals of it. It's a visual feast, man. Like the waterfall sequences, like all that was so cool. The actual, again, like just the lay of the land, the way they designed Wakanda to be this city and country. It was cool, man. I thought it was. I thought it was a cut above most Marvel movies, certainly. Where I think you can argue that there's a bit of sameness to visual design for Marvel movies in general.
No, this was completely different, though. I mean, you're.
And then this is on its. This is just doing its own thing,
but rightfully so. It takes place in Africa, which is different than every other Marvel movie. And I don't know. I just. Like you say, the costume design in and of itself, the use of colors and everything in the costumes were supposed to reflect different tribes in Africa. So they projected what if Wakanda was an actual city-state in Africa or a country in Africa, what tribes, what would they pick up on based on Wakanda's location? You know what I mean? And they kind of blended things, and it was just a really clever use of it was just a logical use of existing cultures, which is really cool. And I feel like a lot of that stuff, none of the other movies this year had that kind of stuff in it, which is awesome. It's just real cool movie. Black Panther's real cool movie. Yeah.
Wow, man! There's so many hot takes just coming out right now.
Hot takes.
It's really quite impressive. Let's slide over into the best cinematography in 2018. What did you have for this?
Okay, so best cinematography for me, I'm gonna. It was a tough pick. My runner-up was Suspiria. It was a long, very, very long movie, full of very pretty imagery. It was almost what's the word? Not self-aware, self-indulgent. It was very self-indulgent, I thought.
Yes, that's accurate.
But it was a very well shot movie. But I thought Roma was I thought Roma's cinematography elevated elevated Roma, which is, if I'm not mistaken, I think the director of that movie was a cinematographer at one point. And I know historically his picture, you have that one incredible one take in Gravity, right?
Yeah.
He's got other
one, Children of Men as well.
Children of, yes, which I caught that this year for the first time. I actually watched that in its entirety, which is an incredible movie. And almost every shot, I don't know. It sounds like you watched this movie, which last time I talked to you, I don't think you had seen it yet.
Roma is the last movie I watched prior to recording this.
Okay.
So.
It seems like all the shots of this movie were just like they were just sustained shots. It felt like you were actually watching things unfold because the length of the shots. There was very minimal takes. It felt like, and it was really cool and very authentic feeling. It was it's very different. I don't think movies are shot like this regularly. So for that reason, Roma's got my pick for cinematography.
Well, it's a damn good pick if I do say so myself.
Oh.
I also had Roma for best cinematography. Until I watched it, I think I would have gone with First Man, actually. But Roma, it's the last thing I saw, so maybe there's recency bias if you want to put it as such. But
it's a well shot movie.
It was a fucking beautiful movie, man.
Yeah.
And the the thing about Roma is it's in black and white. And that
speaks volumes about how well it's shot.
That's gonna, you're right. That's gonna put some people off, needless to say. But I think that whether or not you look at it as something like where Cuarón basically hamstrung himself, the fact that the movie still has this amazing cinematography without the use of colors, it's
strictly framing.
Like my TV switches in Dolby Vision mode. I'm like, okay, great. Like, I can't wait for all the colors to pop. All the blacks and the whites are going to pop in this movie. But like, seriously, it's insane how beautiful this film is, even without color.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that it's shot. I mean, it's hard for me to really put into words. Just to kind of like I said. I mean, just there's such a fluidity, flow to the camera. It feels very naturalistic. Like
there's a lot of panning shots, right? Like
right.
You got a lady walking down the street.
There's not a lot of cuts. It just lets the action happen within the frame instead of like telling you, look at this, look at it. Like, it's just like, no, there's just absorb it. Like, that's kind of the approach to the movie, was just like, just absorb this imagery, absorb the cinematography. And I enjoyed, like, there's a lot of like really elaborate sequences in the film.
Yeah. Which is a testament to the actors. They can memorize the walking,
and like
and
it felt
placement
like they literally just felt like you just got dropped into this time period, and then someone just filmed. Like, it was so,
it's real.
Like you take a step back, and I'm like, holy fuck, how much time did they have to put into like setting this thing up? And like, if one thing goes wrong, like, do they have to? Can they even do another take? Is it like
gotta reset the fucking camera? All the way back.
Like, I was crazy, like, it was just really crazy, and to see the final product, whether or not it ended up being a lot of heartache in the production process, man, like the results are palpable, man. Like, I was blown away by it. I really was. So Roma, Alfonso Cuarón, cinematographer and director on it, but I give it the nod for best cinematography.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an outstanding. It was a well shot movie.
Yeah. So best director, we're getting a little further along here. Best director. I think there's an argument to be made for Alfonso Cuarón for Roma. I think there's an argument to be made for Spike Lee for BlacKkKlansman. But I will make the argument for Bradley Cooper for Star is Born.
That's a hot take. Hot take. Ba, 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 ba. Bradley Cooper.
He's a first-time director. So I think that's probably going to be the backbone of my argument.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
And A Star is Born feels in the same way that, we talked about Chazelle with Whiplash, like that Star is Born feel like the products of people that have been doing this for a long time. And it's not like Bradley Cooper is just like some up and comer in the Hollywood industry. Like, no, he's been around the block a few times. Like, he clearly knows what he's doing, but he's never been behind the camera like this before. And to make A Star is Born be as beautifully shot as it is, I think a lot of the The musical sequences are really, really well done. There's some fantastic shots. I mean, it's not just the way that it's shot. It's not the way that it's edited. It's not the way that, the music elevates the emotions of it. Dude got some ridiculous performances out of, let's start with himself as Jackson Maine, just crushing it.
Right.
But Lady Gaga, who not known for her acting talents prior to this, and everyone else, man. Sam Elliott, great turn as a supporting character. Dice Man, Andrew Dice Clay in this was great. Like, strong performances across the board. There's a little Dave Chappelle action in there too for a brief part of the film. Top to bottom, I mean, he did everything that you would expect out of an experienced director. Get amazing performances out of people. Shoot it in a way that's magnetic, it draws you in, and present a movie that is kind of the complete package. I mean, this is. I say you expect that out of people that have been directing for years and years and years, and you expect that out of like certain directors, but you don't expect it out of first-time directors. I think you're like, oh, it's first-time director, you can forgive them for a few flaws, but I felt like
there's not a lot of flaws in that movie.
I thought it was extremely impressive what he managed to do here. So Bradley Cooper was my pick for this. Who'd you have?
I had a Spike Lee runner-up, and I had a Damien Chazelle. That's what I had for director.
First Man?
Yeah, that's what I had. Bradley Cooper is an exceptional take, though. Like you say, it is his first time directing a movie. And he had some serious star power in there, and he got every last bit of everything. I feel like I'm advocating now for that instead of Damien Chazelle. But for Damien, I would, he's not a first time director. He's directed many good movies. And I feel like First Man's got a lot of polarized views because maybe the lead there he's a little bit cold as Neil Armstrong.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like that's part of the character, and I kind of connected with that a little bit. So I think I'm on the positive polarization of the movie. Like I said, I connected very well with everything that was going on. I think it was an excellent use of sound design. Like you said, with editing, I thought that it was very well edited. You feel the tension when he's in the ship, but at the same time, you grapple with the tension with him at home, and it felt like a very real dynamic. And it felt, I don't know, it was a very authentic experience, I thought. Not to say that you get anything less out of A Star Is Born, because that's an incredible movie. But at the same time, I was also blown away for different reasons. I feel like on a complication level, I mean, I feel like A Star Is Born is a well-written, well-acted movie, right? I do feel like cinematography is pretty tastefully done in that as well. But I feel like the direction in First Man, you have the tension at home and in space. You have sound design. You have editing. You do have an incredible score. I don't know if we've talked about the score of that movie, but it's a potent score. And I think the overall package is very impactful, and I think it's very well crafted. So for that reason, I picked Damien Chazelle for Best Director. Spike Lee was a good runner-up. Spike Lee was my runner-up because he had a story that he wanted to tell with BlacKkKlansman, and he fucking told that movie, and he got awesome results out of Adam Driver, out of the main, I don't know the main actor's name.
John David Washington, I think he's Denzel's kid.
Is he Denzel's kid?
Yeah.
Hot damn!
Yeah.
Well, he's a fucking badass actor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and the female, the co-star of that movie, I don't know her name either. Doing everybody a massive disservice.
Laura Harrier. She's in Spider-Man as well.
Yeah, great. She's
Spider-Man: Homecoming, that is, because there's another Spider-Man movie that came out this year, so that's confusing. But yes.
Yeah. So I mean, Black Klansman. I don't think I haven't nominated it for anything. I don't think you've nominated it for anything either yet. But incredibly well-made movie. Well acted. Awesome direction. I don't know if Spike Lee wrote this movie or not. I guess it's an adapted screenplay based off of a book. Because it's based off of a real deal.
Right. Yeah.
But either way, Spike Lee crushed it with that movie. But like I said, at the end of the day, I picked my space movie, so that's what I picked. What do you got for best supporting actor? I'm curious to see if we have the same thing here. I think we might have the same thing.
Oh, well, I guess we'll find out. My best supporting actor is Michael B. Jordan as Eric Killmonger from Black Panther.
Oh, we got the same thing.
So I went, I think, a little bit unconventional with this last year. I think I ended up picking Adam Driver from The Last Jedi. And I don't think that Michael B. Jordan's going to win like an Oscar for his role, but fucking hell, dude was super charismatic, scary at times, and like he just absolutely owned that role of Killmonger as the villain of Black Panther.
Yeah,
there's no doubt in my mind that of a film filled with amazing actors and amazing performances, his was the standout for me.
Absolutely.
And I think that speaks volumes.
I really think, and it's an incredibly potent thing for a superhero movie, for the nothing against Chadwick, right?
Chadwick Boseman. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nothing against him, because he was great. Okay, Black Panther, and he was fucking cool. He was awesome. Okay, but Michael B. Jordan was, I really feel like he was the star of that movie. I don't know. He's just an incredibly authentic, real character. More so than I think you've gotten it at any villain in a Marvel movie. And as an antagonist in general, I think he was just just incredibly well-rounded, incredibly well acted. He just enveloped the character in a way that doesn't happen all the time. I mean, it was definitely a very different experience with watching him on screen. And I don't know, it was incredible. It was an incredible thing. All the way through. It was incredible. The first time one of the first times you see him almost isn't that the art museum?
Yeah, I think that is his first appearance in the film.
Yeah, blows you away from the get-go. Becomes badass, But he's not just badass. He's a badass with a history, and he's got a little bit of a tenderness to him, a little bit.
I think if there's one scene you can point to for why he should be recognized in this capacity, I point to the scene where he is reunited in the spiritual realm
with his dad.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. No Tears for Me, and
that whole I just got chills thinking about that scene. That's enough for me to be like, fuck anyone that doesn't recognize that. Seriously. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It really is.
It's ridiculous.
It's so
it's as simple as that. It's ridiculous. I don't need to elaborate further.
And for it to be in a Marvel movie of all things, like you don't think a best supporting actor or best actor or anything else would be in a Marvel movie. You don't think that.
Not typically.
But this is, it's just an incredible role. And hats off to Michael. Michael B. Jordan had a really good year this year. Crushed it, but
He did.
crushed Black Panther for sure.
Yeah, but we haven't talked about Creed at all. It ended up being in probably my top 10 for the year, but I thought Creed 2 was good. Michael B. Jordan crushed it in that too, so I will recognize it here and probably here alone. Maybe it's in your top 10. I don't know. We'll get there soon. Maybe eventually. People are like, "Wait, hold on. We're coming on 2 hours. Are we going to get to the good stuff at any point?" We're getting there. Who'd you have for Best Supporting Actress?
I had Lady Gaga as a Best Supporting Actress. Thought Lady Gaga was a very heartfelt character.
I agree and disagree in the sense that
maybe she was a lead actress. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. But we'll go with it. It's fine.
I have somebody else picked as my Best Actress.
Fair enough. Well, anyway, continue.
Yeah, so maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I think you're trying to spread the love. I get it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Lady Gaga.
To be fair, I'm going to cheat for Best Supporting Actress too, so I will allow it. So
okay, again, well if you're cheating, I don't feel like a stupid moron. Then.
Exactly,
okay.
It's fine. Right. So So I'll let you do your thing.
Yeah, Lady Gaga made me cry. Lady Gaga was incredible. Lady Gaga, I don't think has ever acted in a movie before. Maybe she has, but I never watched it. I love Lady Gaga. I'm all about Lady Gaga. And she was cool in this movie.
Gaga for Gaga.
Gaga for Gaga. That's what I'm saying. A Star Is Born is an incredible movie, and that's because of Lady Gaga. I mean, you can, from acting prowess alone, yes, she's incredible. But then you start to look at everything, her other contributions to the movie, with writing the majority of the soundtrack and everything. It's just mind blowing. She's incredibly talented, and there's a lot of emotional connection with Lady Gaga. The one that I gave Best Actress to, it's a very different feel. And honestly, I kind of feel like they're probably interchangeable between the two. Yeah, I can't give enough praise to Lady Gaga. I'm authentically blown away by her. She might be, she probably should be, especially after you made a comment about my nomination here. She probably should be the Best Actress. But I'm curious to hear how you cheated on this.
I cheated because I picked two people for Best Supporting Actress. However, I picked two actresses from the same film, so I feel like it's sort of not cheating because they were. Let me backtrack. Is
this that period piece? I feel like it's going to be that period piece.
It is. I picked Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz from The Favorite.
Yeah, I wanted to see that movie.
It's great. I really enjoyed it, and the film is basically their rivalry for winning the affections of the Queen, basically.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to have both in the conversation because they're every bit each other's equal,
right?
And their dynamic is what sells the movie. I think it's not entirely true. I think we'll get to Olivia Colman as Queen Anne. She's a big part of why it works too. But I think that in terms of like the supporting roles, like those two, I don't know. You recast one or the other, film might not work as well as it does, and that's the simple fact of it. And so for me, it's kind of like I can't just recognize like, well, Emma Stone was so good. I'm like, well, then Rachel Weisz was she was the same.
Right.
Like they worked so well together.
Right. Which Rachel Weisz is, I have a special place in my heart for her. I like her a lot.
Okay.
Rachel Weisz.
Yeah,
and Emma Stone was great in
too,
Maniac. So. She was a cool Maniac. Mm-hmm. She had a good year. Rachel Weisz was in The Fountain, right? That's that's Darren, or was Darren Aronofsky, or maybe they're still married, I don't know, but that's Darren Aronofsky's wife or ex-wife or something.
I don't think I don't think they're I'm pretty sure she's married to Bond, Daniel Craig now. But
Is she married to Bond? Fucking hey, so. She moved up. She moved
yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, no, she's I really like her. I think Fountain's probably my favorite movie she's in, but every time she's in something I generally enjoy it. I think she's a wonderful actress.
Yeah, and it's a great movie. I would definitely recommend the movie, but it's buoyed by the performances 100%, and Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz are a big part of that. So that's why I cheated and picked them. So we're just going to write off the Best Supporting Actress award because we're just like, whatever. We'll do what we want. We don't give a shit. We make the fucking rules here, man. We ain't no Academy Awards, all right?
That's it.
Best Actor. What did you have for Best Actor? Or is this my turn? I guess
it's your turn.
Not that it matters, but I have Christian Bale as Dick Cheney from Vice.
Yeah, see, I didn't watch that one. God damn.
Because if there's one good thing I can say about that's mean. The best thing I can say about Vice is that Christian Bale is ridiculously good. Total transformation. I mean, obviously,
It's kind of like prior to the
You could see from the trailer that obviously Christian Bale went to some lengths to pull off this role. I think was it the picture you can see there's a part in the trailer where you can see his fucking stomach, and he put on some serious pounds, let's put it that way. But I think it's more than just a physical transformation. He really just embodied that role. Like, he became another person, and Christian Bale's the fucking type of actor that does that on a pretty consistent basis.
Yeah, it's like his thing.
It's definitely his thing. I think The Fighter, I think he got Best Supporting Actor for The Fighter, if you saw that from a few years back, and he was phenomenal in that. this I think it's such a different character that to me it just shows the range that Bale has. He's definitely one of my favorite actors. I don't think there's any doubt about that for me. And while I had issues with the film itself, I think it's enjoyable. It's an entertaining film. I found it messy overall. It was like The Big Short style slapped onto subject matter that probably needed something a little bit more serious. A
little bit more cohesive.
Yeah. It was very all over the place. I found it very schizophrenic in terms of its editing and such. But I found that the one, like Amy Adams is in this. She's fantastic as well. Sam Rockwell's W was good fun. Not in a whole lot, to be fair. But Bale absolutely sold the shit out of this role. He was great in it.
Yeah, see, I think I'd really enjoy that movie. I was hyped up to see it, and I just haven't had the motivation to go see it yet.
It's still out, so it's you could make it happen.
I feel like there's three movies that I need to go see this week. So maybe I will go see these three movies.
All right. Well, I think you would not be led astray if you made your way to see those three. Let's put it that way. So, who'd you have for Best Actor?
Best Actor, I had a dual split. I'm gonna go a little unconventional with the second one, but the first one's Bradley Cooper.
Good shout.
I thought Bradley Cooper was he played an incredibly tragic character, and I thought I think he nailed every aspect of that person. It felt like a very real person, and I think that's why the movie worked as good as it did for A Star Is Born. My second choice, because I feel like we've been talking about A Star Is Born a good chunk of the night. This second choice we have not talked about at all, and my second best actor is going to go to Tom Waits.
Okay, yeah, Buster Scruggs.
And Buster Scruggs, yes, as the miner or the
prospector.
The prospector, right? Looking for Mr. Pocket.
Mr. Pocket.
He carried a probably 15 to 20 minute short. And it was an incredibly touching role. And he carried it completely by himself. And it was incredibly touching. All of it was touching, and that's thanks to Tom Waits. I think that was probably the best. Bradley Cooper was it's definitely a different experience. But if we're going to talk about, just, I don't know, another heartfelt thing, I think Tom Waits killed it in that role. So yeah, those are my two favorite actors for this year.
Oh, very good. Very
Bradley
good.
Cooper and Tom Waits.
Best Actress. So we know that Lady Gaga could have won this award, but you picked someone else.
I did. I picked Toni Collette from Hereditary. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So Lady Gaga made me cry a lot in her movie. Toni Collette made me scared to go back home. That bitch was losing her fucking mind. She was crazy. She rightfully so. Definitely rightfully so. I thought she absolutely crushed this role, though. So the question is she a lead actor in her movie? Are they both lead actresses in their movie?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think they would kind of be in an actual awards circuit. They would be competing against each other directly.
Okay. Well, Well, Lady Gaga would probably win. I think
that's all right. You already gave Lady Gaga a recognition.
Yeah. So Toni
for the
Collette,
purposes of this podcast, it's fine.
Yeah, Toni Collette, absolutely. What an incredible job she did as that mother in Hereditary. Really good fucking job. That's off to her. Crying and screaming and just being overall uneasy and trying to figure shit out. I thought she did an excellent job. So it would not be the same movie with anybody else, I don't think. So that's why I picked her. Who'd you pick for Best Actress?
Well, I had Toni Collette as a runner-up.
Okay.
And I had Olivia Colman from The Favorite as a runner-up as well. She was the queen. She was wonderful in this role, and I think in any given year she would have probably been my pick. But Lady Gaga happened, man.
Yeah, Lady Gaga was absolutely incredible.
She's, you touched on it a lot. She's a revelation, man. In terms of, I'm not someone that listens to Lady Gaga, but I've always kind of understood that like she's a very talented musician, but I didn't know that she was as talented an actress as she is. And she absolutely, yeah, I mean, her role in A Star Is Born maybe moved me to tears. There's no way to know, but
multiple times. I was moved to tears multiple times.
She's so great as Allie in that movie. Such an authentic performance, and it's an opportunity for her to show off her amazing vocal range. And maybe that's like cheating, I guess, in like a movie like that. But she does everything else so well. It's like, no, of course she's just this talented at doing everything. Why not?
She's a tour de force, man. I think is the term. She's incredible. She's an incredible woman.
So I could say many things for many more minutes about Lady Gaga.
Many more minutes.
She was great. She's fantastic. And no disrespect to the ladies that I didn't pick, but they weren't Lady Gaga. Let's put it that way.
It's true.
So we're getting into our top-ish films for the year. We're going to do honorable mentions first of all. So basically, we're going to have our top 10, more or less, is what it's going to boil down to. But we're going to have 5 honorable mentions, then we're going to get into our top 5 films ranked in order. So we'll begin with the honorable mentions, and we don't need to alternate here. You can just rattle off.
Dump them.
Yeah, we'll do a dump of 5, which I guess it'd be my turn to start, right?
Yeah.
For honorable
mentions.
What do you got? So I have, as I mentioned, my 5 honorable mentions, and I'll briefly talk about why I picked them as honorable mentions, but I'm not going to get super in depth because we've been here for a while and we've got some things to talk about still. Mission Impossible Fallout.
Okay,
first nod.
One. Yeah.
Black Panther would be my second honorable mention.
Wow. Okay.
First Man would be my third honorable mention. The Favorite would be my fourth, and Annihilation would be my fifth honorable mention. So let me just briefly talk about those, and then I'll pass it over to you. So Mission Impossible Fallout's the best action film of the year, no doubt in my mind. It's phenomenal. The cruise missile is ageless and magnificent, and I love him, and I thought that movie was so good. I'm really... The Mission Impossible franchise, man, the way that it's turned out, unexpected, but just really, really brilliant. And I felt that Fallout was... If it wasn't the best entry in the franchise, it was up there with Rogue Nation. And shout out to Leggy Bay, Rebecca Ferguson, of course.
Leggy
crushing
Bay.
it.
Yep.
Crushing it as always. And Henry Cavill, man, the fucking hammer. Dude was awesome.
Yeah, he
was awesome.
Mustache.
Black Panther, man. So Black Panther, I thought it was a fantastic film. Great performances, just an amazing supporting cast, great visuals. And it's my favorite live-action superhero film, as I kind of said a while back. I loved this film. It's in my top 10 for a reason. I just felt that overall, some of the other movies had more oomph behind them for one reason or another. And so that's pretty much just what I had to do. First Man is a technical tour de force, I would say. It's I gave it the nod for editing, but I think it's up there with sound design, cinematography. It's in the discussion. Ryan Gosling's great. Claire Foy's great. Good supporting cast. I'm pretty sure it had my boy Kyle Chandler in it, so respect for that. And I thought this was a great movie. It's possible I just haven't seen it since October. If I had seen it more recently, I wish I had seen it more recently, because then I would, I feel bad because I'm like, this really could be a top 5 film for me, but it's hard for me to say because I need to see it again.
Right.
Just the timing just didn't work out to be able to see it again. So kind of had to go with my gut and say, I know it's good enough to be in the top 10, but I don't know if I can really justify it being in my top 5. So
fair enough.
That's where it ended up. The Favorite, amazing performances. Olivia Colman, Emma Stone, Rachel Weisz, all amazing in it. The period setting is great fun. The humor in it is top notch. Yorgos Lanthimos is the director on it. He did The Lobster, which I've seen. He's like a very off-kilter, weird sort of director, and this is more of a straightforward picture for him. But it retains his style, his wit, the way that it's shot. The costuming is all great. It was definitely one of my favorites of the year. And then Annihilation. Natalie Portman, Oscar Isaac, great cast. And I loved the camaraderie and the team that went into the Shimmer. Tessa Thompson, who we know of the Tessa Thompson / Paul Rudd rule, so that is still in full force here. Jennifer Jason Leigh I thought was good in this role, but I loved the setting of this. The Shimmer was such a cool concept for a film. The intrigue, like when they go in and like just weird shit happens and they see weird shit and weird shit happens and then that third act happens and you're like,
fucking bonkers.
You ain't seen any weird shit yet. I love this film. I don't understand this film, I don't think fully,
Have you watched it again?
I did watch it again. I got more out of it, but I'm still kind of just like, okay. Like I think it's okay for that film to not be like I fully understand everything that happened in this film. I don't think it's that kind of movie.
Right.
I'm okay with it kind of letting things just be the way they are, like just letting things stand where they lie. I enjoyed that approach to the filmmaking, and Alex Garland between this and Ex Machina, I'll see anything this guy does.
Yeah, quite the talented dude for sure.
So those are my honorable mentions, and those would be why. What do you have for your honorable mentions?
I have Isle of Dogs, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, Infinity War, Sorry to Bother You, and Black Klansman.
So we have literally 5 different honorable mentions.
We do.
Nice.
Yeah, so Isle of Dogs. Isle of Dogs is an incredible movie. I've fallen asleep with the score probably more times than I can count. The cast and the level of attention to detail in the production. And
I heard a rumor that you like Isle of Dogs pretty well, but not well enough to be in your top 5. But I heard a rumor that it would be in your honorable mentions. Is that right?
Is that right? Is that what happened?
I was doing a little Jeff Goldblum dog thing.
Oh. Yeah, so it was a really incredible movie. I really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. Ballad of Buster Scruggs, I think, was much like Isle of Dogs. I think Isle of Dogs was kind of a different kind of movie. I think Ballad of Buster Scruggs is definitely a different kind of movie. And I really enjoyed it. It was a different direction. They did what they set out to do, which was good. And very good performances, and I just enjoy fresh takes on different things. A lot of movies, you can watch, the movies are being made all the time, and a lot of times you can fall into like certain tropes, and sometimes it feels routine, and I don't think that Ballad of Buster Scruggs was like that. I feel like it was a very different experience, which is cool. Infinity War. Infinity War is the continuation of a massive undertaking, and it's the beginning of the conclusion of that undertaking, which has taken over a decade to do. And it's an amazing hallmark in film and cinematic history. This is a very different beast. It's a very different animal, and it's an incredible thing. Infinity War represents a very, very incredible thing. And it was very well made. Like you said, the special effects and visual effects and everything, they're very set apart from everything else. It's very cool. Sorry to Bother You was the only experience that I think you'll ever get like it. It was well acted. And it was a very, I don't know, it's a very different movie that had a lot to say, and I think it said it very well in its own way, and I really enjoyed it. And Black Klansman is, I guess technically wouldn't it be considered a biopic? A little bit?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And it was a very, very well made movie. I really enjoyed Black Klansman. I just watched it the other day, and it really blew me away. If I had to struggle with anything, it would be with Isle of Dogs, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, and Black Klansman being in the top 5. But ultimately they fell into the honorable mentions. I think that the honorable mentions and the top 5, like if you haven't seen any movies all year, I feel like you go catch one of these top you go catch any of these honorable mentions, I think you're going to have a good representation of the year. You know what I'm saying?
I do, and I think we haven't really talked about it. This was actually, in terms of film, I feel like this was a really good year, but it's a year where there wasn't like one runaway kind of like, oh my God, this is the best thing in the world. Like there's a lot of like really great films.
Yeah.
And so much that like a lot of like what you've talked about for your honorable mentions would probably be somewhere in my 11 to 15 range. And I'm like, doesn't mean they're really that much work. Like there's very little separation between all of these movies. I don't think there's like, oh, here's a 10 out of 10, everything else is 8 or 10 below. Like, no, like they're all up there, man. Like there's so many good movies this year that it's hard to go wrong with anything. And it's interesting, and I think it proves my point, is that our honorable mentions are literally all different. I think that speaks to the quality of cinema this year. It's interesting, but it made for a hell of a time trying to figure out what the fuck the order was for any of this. I will say that.
Put in here, right?
Yeah. But that was your 5, is that right?
That was my 5 honorable mentions. That's right.
Okay. Didn't want to skip over anything. Well, I guess it would be time for our top 5 films ranked in order. Number 5. Do you want to begin? You want me to begin?
I can kick it off.
All right. What do you have for number 5?
So number 5 was Spider-Verse. I thought Spider-Verse was a superhero films aside, like even looking beyond that, just by by being an animated feature in and of itself, I think it was incredibly strong. And yes, it was it was your superhero pick of the year. And I don't think you're wrong with that decision. It was an incredible movie. And a lot of work went into it, and it shows. And it's a beautifully crafted movie. It's a well voice acted movie, and it's an incredibly entertaining movie. And I thought, I think representation this year for Black people is just off the charts. I mean, you have Black Panther, you've got Spider-Verse, you got Black Klansman, you have apparently you have Beale Street, which is supposed to be a really good movie, and I think Spider-Verse lends into the into that representation in a major way. Because it's not only a Black person movie or anything else. It's also, you also have Spanish representation in there as well, which was a very valid point of view, I think, more so than in any other time, I think. So, I think Spider-Verse is an incredible movie for a lot of different reasons. So for that reason, it's my number 5.
My number 5 is Black Klansman.
Ooh, okay, yeah, all right, I can see it. You're not wrong.
Yeah, this was fantastic. This movie definitely, I caught this in theaters, and haven't seen it since, unfortunately, but it's been recent enough that it blew me away at the time. I think the performances, John David Washington, Adam Driver in particular, are great. The subject matter, this is the kind of movie that it's not the same without Spike Lee. And Spike Lee, it's probably some of the best work Spike Lee's done in years, I would say.
I don't think I've seen any Spike Lee movies before.
I've seen a handful. To be fair, I don't think he's done that much recently, at least not anything I've seen super recently, but it's definitely, I think, the most mainstream thing he's done in terms of reception. And it's damn good. You know, the subject matter that it deals with, obviously, you wouldn't think it would be the case, but it's still very topical.
It should be the case.
I think that, especially by the time you get to the end, with kind of the credits and everything around that, it really puts everything into perspective, and it has that extra push for me where I was just like, shit, you know.
Especially at the end.
That's what I mean. Like right at the end when it because like, hey, this wasn't just a thing 30 years ago, you know. That's where for me it kind of was just like, well, fuck me, you know. You just kind of slump back in your chair and you're like,
it's
damn.
Disgusting.
I think it makes the movie itself more resonant because of that. Because, you know, yes, you have this, you know, it's a movie that's comedic at times, pretty horrifying at times, and you know, it all works as its own kind of thing. Then, but I think you put it in the grander scheme of things, and it takes that extra level to it. So that's why I have it number 5, because I felt like, and above all, it's a really, really great, enjoyable film that hits on different emotions, does it all really well, good performances, and then there's the extra layer added on top of that, where it's just like,
it's still a very relevant movie, right?
Yeah. It's like I said, it's still very topical, and that adds a little bit of something else to it. So, number 5, that's what I had. Number 4, what do you have?
For number 4, I have Annihilation. Annihilation is a very tense, suspenseful sci-fi flick. I enjoyed the sense of adventure that this movie had, where they have to journey into the Shimmer. I enjoyed the questions that everything that happens inside the Shimmer poses. One of the big things is the second time I viewed it, one of the big things I was asking myself is they enter the Shimmer, and then they get to a certain point, and then they're questioning whether how the fuck did we get here, because we've been here for 3 days, because the food we've consumed and the rations that we had for the trip, we've consumed 3 days worth of rations, but none of us remember getting here, right? So the question I was posing the second time I watched it was, is the way the film edited, is it edited to be a representation of the time that they're experiencing? Like, are we experiencing time with the characters in the movie? That was one thing that I was curious about, and I feel like every time you revisit this kind of movie, you're gonna have different questions, and other questions will be answered on more than one viewing. And I think that it was a very well acted movie. It's got my boy Oscar Isaac in it.
It's got your boy in it. I mean, come on.
It is a high sci-fi film, and it's full of interesting questions and intrigue. Not only in the on the surface, but also in like on deeper levels. You know what I mean? On just what it is to be a human and what it is to do what we do. And it just poses a lot of very interesting questions. I imagine that the book is exceptional. And that might
I have the trilogy, and of course I haven't read it. As per
trilogy?
usual with things. Well, so Annihilation was based off the first book in a trilogy. So
okay,
sort of, but even then, I think from what I understand, it was very loosely based off of it, in the sense that like Alex Garland was just kind of inspired, like he read the book and then was just like, I'm not going to look back at that. I'm just going to make my movie based off of what I remember from the book, like this idea of the book, which is really cool way to approach filmmaking. Yeah. Just to add on to kind of what you're saying, because I really enjoyed Annihilation. It very nearly was in my top 5. I actually, the whole concept of self-destruction within it is such a fascinating thematic concept.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, I actually watched it I think a Friday, and then I watched A Star Is Born Saturday.
Oh my goodness.
Very heavily plays into self-destruction, and so there was a lot of those kind of themes kind of lingering in my head, and I was just like, shit. So
yeah, no,
I won't elaborate further on that, but I said just that back-to-back, very different films, obviously, but I felt like that through line was very interesting to see it with that kind of just in the back of my brain. But it was cool. It was an interesting
and it's a very, very, very cool movie. Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's probably, I'm sure other movies in my top 5 are maybe considered sci-fi, but I think this is definitely my sci-fi of the year, for sure. It's incredible. I was very blown away by that movie. What do you got for number 4?
My number 4 is If Beale Street Could Talk. So obviously I've said a couple things about it already.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot of input.
Which is fair. It'd be hard for you to have input on it. But I was really, really impressed with this. This is kind of the complete package type movie where you got a director in Barry Jenkins who clearly has a lot to draw from with James Baldwin's novel, to put his own spin on it, to put his personal touch on it, and for him to just be an accomplished filmmaker that can make really beautiful shots throughout the movie. The framing is great throughout the movie. Cinematography is great. Pair that with that score, which I recognized as my favorite for this year. It's great. The story it tells, I think the way it's edited is all very, very compelling. Unfortunately, it's just not an uplifting film. And that, again, probably strikes maybe to what BlacKkKlansman did, where it's just like, hey, it's not all fun and games. Like, this is life or death for a lot of people, you know? And Beale Street's kind of the same thing, where I think it takes place in maybe the 70s or something. It's a period piece. And, you know, and it's in a... No, maybe earlier than that. Whatever. It's in a point in time
Fuck it.
where racial relations, which obviously aren't amazing now, let's put it that way, they were definitely worse at the time that this movie was set. You know, to the point where it's not really a spoiler to say, but it's pretty obvious that, you know, her love interest, her I guess boyfriend, is thrown into prison because of the rape allegation. But it's kind of clear pretty much from the beginning that he's been targeted because he's black. And so that's a lot of the struggle, is that he doesn't command any respect because of the color of his skin, you know, and that's right. A lot of the struggle throughout the movie is the oppression that the black people in this time still face to this day, you know, and so that's, I think, why it hits so fucking hard, is because it's still relevant. It's crazy. It's like, you know, obviously there's things have progressed in a way that you can have a black director and Barry Jenkins be able to tell this movie, but things haven't progressed that much, you know, right. And I think that still highlights, I think,
maybe not that they haven't progressed that much, but maybe they we just have a long way to go, you know.
We
have a long way to go.
Yeah,
and it's sad.
Absolutely.
It's incredibly heart-wrenching to watch something like the BlacKkKlansman. I don't know about your movie because I haven't seen it, but I mean, it's even something like Spider-Verse has undertones about things that are we should be we should not have these issues. You know what I mean? And I don't know. Black Panther probably says it very, very boldly. And I don't know, man. It just seems like it's been driven home this year. Yeah, I get it. We have an issue, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So, you know, and it makes sense that people can channel their, you know, this into a film. That's I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think that there's a reason that your BlacKkKlansman, your Beale Streets, your Sorry to Bother You's work as well as they do, is because there's a clear undercurrent that goes into the making of those films, where there is very real oppression behind it. There's very real personal stories. There's things that have happened and the writers, directors' lives where they can,
and actors,
that's absolutely,
why they can act it, right?
Like, you know, like they've lived this, you know, and so they're sharing their stories, but it comes out of a very real personal space, and that's why it feels so authentic, and that's, I think, why it hits as hard as it does, is because, you know, this is real. Like, this is the real thing. And
right.
And even something like Black Panther, maybe as fantastic as it could be, an African nation untouched by colonialism. Wow, that's a concept, but it's still infused with that sort of thing. You know what I mean?
You got this boy raised in Oakland, you know,
right?
And man, fuck, so, it hits hard. It hits really hard. All the shit hits really hard. Yes.
So yes, that's more or less my rationale for if Beale Street could talk at number 4. What do you have at number 3?
Number 3 is Hereditary. I haven't seen a horror movie like this in ever, I don't think. Yeah, no, just yeah, that's all I got.
Okay.
It's just
it is pretty fucking wild.
It's a wild, tense, super heavy. It's not, I guess, not super heavy, but I mean, it's got
some moments.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking brutal. brutal movie. Incredibly well crafted. And the tension and, like I said, the fact that it's just an incredibly well-made horror movie. Like I said, I haven't seen a horror movie like this. I don't think I've ever seen one like this before. Not one that it doesn't set out to be outright like, not a tremendous amount of like jump scary shit happens in Hereditary. It just rides the coattails of incredibly dense tension throughout the entire movie. And I think for that reason, it's pretty fucking horrifying. It's a really well-made movie. I don't think there's anything else like Hereditary. So for that reason, I pick it as my number 3. What you got for number 3?
My number 3 is A Star Is Born.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought this would be higher when I was kind of formulating my mental list, but I ended up... 3 is pretty high. Let's not discount that.
There's a lot of movies that came out. 3 is pretty high.
It was tough to really kind of put these in order. A Star Is Born, it's another complete package type scenario, man. Performances are amazing. I've already recognized Bradley Cooper for his directorial chops in his debut, but he owns that role of Jackson Maine, and Lady Gaga is so good. The performance, the supporting cast is great here too. Sam Elliott, Dave Chappelle, Andrew Dice Clay, all really great. The music, the soundtrack of this is it's great. It's fantastic. And I really don't have too many complaints about this movie. I mean, like I said, I rewatched it recently. I think we somewhat talked about this on the episode that we did on the movie itself. I felt that the second half has a bit of a come down from the first half, almost by design, in the sense of it mirrors the relationships. But I still felt kind of the same way in the second time through, where I was so much more enamored by everything in the first half that the second half, even when you kind of expect the turns that it takes, I felt like it never quite reaches the highs of the first half. That's not like, don't interpret that as like it's bad or anything like that. Like it goes from, I think, like top tier amazing to like really fucking good, and it kind of just stays on that. Like it kind of just stays on that wavelength, I think, throughout the rest of the film. And it's a damn fun film. I mean, it's easily one of the best of the year. It's probably my, if I'm rooting for anything to win an Oscar, I think that this film deserves as many nods as it can get, because it's great. So I had a number 3 because, it's a movie that really impacted me emotionally. I felt like, everything in it was just really top notch. But for reasons we'll get into, number 1 and number 2 just had something extra for me. What do you have at number 2?
Number 2 is A Star Is Born. I don't think we could say much more about this movie.
We talked about it a bit, yeah.
I was a sobbing mess this entire movie, just about. I've thought about watching again, but I purposely avoided it just because I don't want my heart to hurt quite as bad as it did the first time I watched it. I think that it was just an incredibly well-made movie. So there's not a lot more to say about number 2.
Fair enough.
I want you to lead with number 1.
Well,
what is your number 1?
I still have a number 2.
Do you have number 2?
I still have a number 2.
That was your number 3, right? What is your number 2? I'm sorry.
No, you're right. We're still not very good at the counting thing, but now you're definitely a few beers in, so...
Yeah. I'm 270-minute IPAs in.
My number 2 was the last film I watched, Roma.
Wow. Okay.
I'd been meaning to watch it on Netflix for a little while now because I'd heard good things about it. There's a lot of buzz around it, and I think Alfonso Cuarón is a brilliant director who's... I looked at his resume. He really hasn't done a whole lot.
No, but what he's done has been incredible.
But what he has done has been incredible. You are absolutely correct in that. And I felt like Roma was no exception to the matter. I was... It's weird because I was about 30 minutes into watching this movie, and I was like, this is really well shot, and it's all great. And I'm like, what's this movie about? I posed that question to myself because I'm like 30 minutes in, and I'm like really invested in this. I'm like, this is all well and good. I'm like,
just a character piece, right? I mean, it's...
and I'm like, okay, what's really going on here? And then it picks up a bit from there, and things start to kind of happen and fall into place. And I'd say maybe an hour in, I was sold. I was sold on everything of it. We talked about the cinematography already, sound design a little bit as well. So technically speaking, there's no question that it's a fantastic movie, but we really haven't delved too much into the real emotional core of the story, which is, I don't want to get too spoilerific with it because...
But we are in the top 5. We've already digressed it. Let's talk about it a little bit.
That's fair, but no, Cleo, she's a maid, kind of just making her living in Mexico, and I think 1970, 71, it kind of takes place over a span of time. And so we kind of just see the movie through her lens,
Right.
And I felt like the way that the setting was depicted was really, really interesting. And I felt like the way that you see the passage of time and, she gets pregnant, and then basically everything that happens from that point, especially like I said, I was so invested like an hour in, and I was just really buying into it, but it wasn't like, it didn't have like that push of like, okay, like this is all really well and good, but where's the energy going to be that's going to make me think?
The whole movie's very subtle.
Right. It is a subtle movie, but I think it's a little bit less subtle towards the end, and I think that's when it kind of, it's kind of held your hand for an hour and a half, and then it's just like, okay, we think you're ready, and it kind of brings into the story some really dramatic elements, some really just heartbreaking things that happen, and
yeah.
Again, I don't want to get too spoilerific, but I think there's really 2 moments, particularly with the hospital and particularly with the beach. And I think that the beach was the thing that sold it for me at the end.
Yeah, it was definitely the crescendo of the whole movie. Because you have 2 parallel stories being told, right? You got the housekeeper and the maid and her pregnancy, and then you also have the divorce between the lady that employs her and and the family and her kids and everything else, and the absence of the father, and that's a very loud thematic element in the whole movie, is the absence of the father, and it's a very touching story. I thought technically it was a very well crafted movie. It's I'm not going to tell you that it didn't touch me, because it definitely did, for a lot of different reasons. But I don't know. I feel like it didn't make my top 5, or it was worth mentioning. Technically, because it's an outstanding movie. It's very good. I don't know. I feel like it's not like it's not like, I don't know. It's just a little bit more subtle than I'm used to. Not used to that sort of subtlety, especially for as long as it is. It's definitely a long, subtle movie.
It's a little over 2 hours.
Yeah, it just kind of
long.
It just played long. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I was tired when I started watching it.
It is definitely a slow burn,
right?
As evidenced by 30 minutes in. I'm trying to like, okay, what's going on here? I think that there's that, but I think that it kind of sucks you in by doing that, and that's why I liked it so much. Is that when it went for the crescendo, if you will, I was completely sold on everything.
And you're invested in each and every character of the movie.
And I felt like the characterization, while maybe subtle and
and
it
subtlety
all felt
is not
just so authentic.
Critique. That's not a critique.
No, not at all.
Means.
But nothing in here. This is not a showy movie.
No,
it's not trying to be a bombastic kind of experience. It's very much. It is kind of a slice of life type movie, if you will, and I don't know that Cuarón's really. In my experience with Cuarón, like Children of Men, Gravity, Harry Potter, those are a little bit more bombastic type movies. This to me strikes me more as
fun fact. The house that it was shot in is next door to the house that he actually grew up in. Did you know that?
Well, so yes, so that's where I was kind of leading, is that we had our whole episode on Del Toro and his personal films and his Hollywood type films. This to me felt like the Cuarón equivalent of a Del Toro personal film. Like Del Toro obviously just has a clear reference for supernatural and weird and fantastical elements, whereas I think Cuarón was just like, to me, it felt like the equivalent in the sense that, like, there's that clear personal connection he had to this material, and he decided to just make it in a way that really just highlights, like, the things that struck him. As someone that's, like, a really accomplished filmmaker, he's like, let me make this thing about...
As someone who grew up in Mexico during those... whatever that rebellion was. I don't know a lot about Mexican history, but clearly the events of that movie had a large impact on him.
Right. And so it's like, I want you to feel how I felt. Like, that was kind of like, to me, that was like the mission statement of Roma was, this was how I felt growing up. This is the things that I ran into. And because I'm an accomplished filmmaker, I can infuse this film with...
It's good. It's really good.
The type of technicality you wouldn't expect of something like this. Like I said, the sound design, you wouldn't expect that out of something like this, I wouldn't think.
The cinematography, surely not.
Cinematography, and the choice to make it in black and white. Like, there's a lot of things in here that are just like...
It's just a creative movie.
Wow.
It's a very... Yeah. No,
right.
There's no doubt about
it comes from a very personal place. And I have a day with it, settling in my brain, but... It rooted itself deep enough for me to have it jump A Star Is Born, which to me seems wild. Because I'm like, I fucking loved A Star Is Born. But I was just like, I don't know, man. I just think on the whole...
You're not wrong. No, you're not wrong. I think...
it just hit me. There's certain movies that just hit you. And Roma was one for me that just laying in bed watching it, and man, tears rolling down my face. And I'm just like, fucking hell, dude.
Yeah.
This is film. This is film right here, man. I was... really, really, really impressed with it. So I had it number 2 as a result.
Really good movie. It's a really good movie. My number 2. Did I talk about number 2?
If it's still A Star Is Born, then yes.
Okay. All right.
So what's your number 1?
My number 1 for the year is going to be Black Panther. Black Panther is my number 1 for... I think I've named every reason why it would be my number 1. I think it's made a significant cultural impact to a lot of people, and I think that it is a well-crafted movie. I think that it's the first movie of its kind to have this kind of impact. I think it's the first movie of its kind, period, to be fair. But it's just it's a work of love and passion by everybody that was involved in it. I think it's incredibly awesome that Disney gave the kind of voice to Ryan Coogler to make this movie. They kind of just opened up their pocketbook and said, make what you need to make, and we're going to step back. And he did. And I think it was a very hands-off approach. It feels like it was. And he told what he intended to tell. And I think he told it well. And I think it's made a lasting impact on a lot of people for a long time to come, and I think you'll see the ripple effects through cinema for a long time. I think you'll see more movies being made like Black Panther. I think that you'll see movies being made with I don't know. I think moving forward for many years to come, I think that you'll see more cultural infusion from different places, which is very exciting because now, like, for example, Wonder Woman was a hit, right? You don't have a lot of female superhero movies. I feel like you have Black Panther now, and I feel like the amount of culture that was infused into that movie and the amount of heart that was infused into that movie, I think now that we know that it can have a resounding success in the box office and money is to be made because there is an audience very much present, I think that certain voices will be allowed to be heard much louder than they've been allowed to be heard in the past. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And for that reason, I think that if you had to pick a movie from 2018 to say, hey, listen, what was going on in cinema in 2018? What was the big thing that happened in 2018? I think that I would point to Black Panther. Black Panther is the one thing that I would point to. Listen, Black Panther impacted the most people, and I think it's had the most significant impact on our communities. And I think it's, I don't know. I think it's just cinema is one of those things where it's kind of like literature, and I mean, I don't know, I'm not an avid reader or anything, but I think when something like Black Panther happens, it changes things for a long time, and I think it makes cinema a very applicable art form, right? I think that I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I think you know what I'm trying to say. I just don't know how to articulate it very well. I think when something like Black Panther happens, it solidifies cinema as a viable form of change and cultural impacts and stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, because everyone watches movies. Everyone goes to the movie theater. Not literally everyone, but it forms, I think, expectations.
It's a catalyst. It's a catalyst for change,
right? To date, every superhero movie is a white dude. With some minor exceptions here and there. I mean, obviously we had Blade for a few years, but
yeah,
you haven't seen this type of representation where if you're
not only on screen, not only is the hero a black male, right? But you also
so is everyone else in the movie,
and everyone involved in making the movie.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah,
and it's just I don't know. It's a different thing, and you can tell it's a different thing when you watch it, and it's a good thing. Kind of like Black Klansman. Black Klansman's like the same thing, but obviously Black Panther had a much stronger impact than Black Klansman did, and for that reason,
it did make $700 million.
Bingo,
domestically.
Exactly. Now you're talking about that. There's ticket receipts. We have ticket receipts to the amount of people that were exposed to something that was largely a black person project, right? And I don't want that to. I don't. That's a big deal. That's a massive deal. And it's awesome. It's totally fucking cool. It's really good. I'm really happy about it.
And you hope that sets the template of like, oh, you can make a movie like this and make money off of it. Because I think there's this Hollywood is very much an up its own ass kind of industry.
Absolutely.
Resistant to change. And I think that you make a movie like this, granted, it took Marvel Studios almost 20 movies to get there. It's taking them 20 plus movies to make a female-led superhero movie.
But they're doing
clearly,
it's happening.
They're slow to make the changes, but when you have that level of power and you can affect that change, I guess, if nothing else, I mean, they're doing it. Better late than never, right? So
absolutely. And change change just takes a lot of time. Change takes time. And but we're on the precipice of a large thing. When like you said, when something like Black Panther makes the money that it does, then it is apparent that there is an audience thirsting for something like Black Panther. And it can be done. It can be done. And I don't know. It's incredible. It's an incredible thing. So, like I said, for my top 5 pick, for my number 1 movie of the year, I would say Black Panther, and I would say because it made a significant impact. I think it signified change. I think it's going to be the catalyst for a lot of change moving forward, not only in cinema but in culture. And I think it's just I think it's a very potent film. For a lot of different reasons. So that's why it's my number 1.
Would you also say it's because you are Black Panther?
And it's also because I am Black Panther. Exactly.
Okay. Very good. Very good.
What was your number 1? I'm curious.
My number 1. Do you have a guess? You want to take a stab at it? Do you think you know what my number 1 is?
You haven't listed Black Panther yet.
Yeah, it was in my honorable mentions.
Oh, it was in your honorable mentions. Okay, well, what's your number 1 then? I don't know what it fucking could be. If it's not Black Panther, I don't know what it could be.
My number 1 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Dude, wow. Your number 1 movie of the entire year is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Let's hear your rationale behind that. I'm curious.
Well, as I've kind of somewhat talked about already, when I went into the rankings of these things, it's a mix of the subjective and the objective. So I think objectively, it's probably a good place to start with Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse. I think it's a beautifully animated film with a great voice cast depicting its characters. But I think the characters is probably the part where you start to lean into this movie being something special. Miles Morales' arc throughout the whole thing is nothing short of
spectacular.
Brilliant. And I think that not only does Miles get a lot of play, most of the characters get some fashion of an arc. So I think Peter B. Parker is probably the other one that has the biggest sort of arc to it, where it's him kind of, he's someone that's had a shit go of it and kind of finds some inspiration. And I think that's really touching. And Gwen's kind of also in the same boat where she's had a rough go of it as well, and she finds a friend. Like that's more or less her arc, whereas I think some of the other Spider characters is more just like hey, I just want to go back to my own dimension or whatever, and they're very entertaining in their own right, but there's less depth, I think, added to some of those characters. Not to detract from them, but there's clear focus paid to some versus others. It's as simple as that. But where the focus is given, it's just absolutely phenomenal. It's clear to me that there was a lot of love put into the scripting process of this film, where like this film, like you could make this film pretty and entertaining because people like Spider-Man and people like superhero movies and all that, but you make this movie something special when you put something extra into it. And I think Miles as a character that is Black and Hispanic, that's big. That's in and of itself pretty big. But the fact that they put a lot of authenticity into how that was actually realized was a big deal. His relationship with his dad is so touching, so real, so authentic. His relationship with his mom is it's kind of the same thing, where like it comes from a place where it feels, even though it's animated, even though it's a guy that gets bit by a spider and turns into fucking Spider-Man, like it comes from a real emotional place, and it shows. Now, that's all well and good. I think objectively, I can justify it number one based on that. But the reason I really put it at number one for me personally is because it's fucking Spider-Man, and because I fucking love Spider-Man.
You love Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's one of my favorite comic book characters.
I think this is probably the best representation of Spider-Man ever, I think.
I agree. And I think Spider-Man Homecoming is my favorite live-action Spider-Man film. But this is probably my favorite Spider-Man film, period. It does it all so well, and it warms my heart personally to see so much love given to this character. And love given no less by Sony, of all fucking companies, who shit out Venom months prior to this and then churn this thing out, where it's clear, like, what the fuck was that? If you could do this, why were you doing that? Like, like that to me is kind of like, okay, I don't know what the fuck's happening here. But all the creatives behind this are worthy of recognition, in my opinion. Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, Rodney Rothman, Lord Miller, who worked on this. Big. I mean, crucial to this, of course, the great Stan Lee, Steve Ditko in terms of creating the original Spider-Man, and then fucking Bendis and Pacelli, man, for making Miles for the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. I love the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. I'm sad to say it actually didn't read as far as when Miles got introduced, so I'm only cursorily familiar with the Miles character. Obviously he's in the PS4 game, but it's a little bit different depiction of him.
And that PS4, I mean, listen, PS4 game for a movie that's not a movie, PS4 game definitely made an impact.
Mm-hmm.
That shit was good. Miles Morales is a very good Spider-Man, I think.
Yeah. I just since we're running long, I will summarize things as saying every character in this movie has a purpose, and there's meaning behind them. There's real emotion behind them. Kingpin,
there's a lot of character growth.
Kingpin has something, and then there's just the extra level of, holy shit, Dr. Octopus is in this. What the fuck? I didn't expect that. Spoilers, sorry, I guess for anyone, but like that's the kind of thing for me where I'm just like, holy shit, like this is people like that.
And those octopus arms were kind of cool too.
Yeah, like this is made by people that love this shit as much as I do, and we're like, kind of what I talked about with Adi Shankar and Castlevania. It's just like,
yeah,
why don't we just do
man.
that? Why don't we, we got this thing here. Why don't we just do it in this other medium and not make a dog shit like we usually do? What a concept! What a fucking concept, man! And they just nailed it as far as I'm concerned. So I put it at number 1. I never would have expected it. I mean, I know the trailers looked really like visually interesting and all that. They looked cool. Like it was clear from the beginning that like, okay, like Sony, do this. Less Venom, more Spider-Verse. And after seeing it, that could not be more true. Of please cancel all of the live action bullshit. Please focus your efforts into doing all of this. Except maintain the quality. Don't make shitty versions of this because I don't want that. Just do this again. Same but different.
Exclusively
but same.
Just do this. Right?
Yeah. So Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's my number 1.
And it was very self-aware too of everything that's come before it. Like I think that self-awareness was awesome. It was a very unique film. That's my no. It's in my top 5. I feel like much like you said earlier. I think that all the movies, a lot of the movies made this year, not all of them, but a lot of the movies made this year can be kind of switched out. Like I don't think there's a wrong answer.
Really? No. Yeah. I mean, you could fluctuate. I think you move around anything and
just tweak your perspective a little bit. And I think you can probably come to the same answer. Like, I mean, there's a lot of 2018 was an excellent movie for cinema.
An excellent movie for cinema. You heard it here first, folks.
I hope 2019 is just as good.
Yeah. Well,
we do have Lion King coming out this year, so there is that.
Yep. Well, maybe that's a good way to put a pen in it for now because we're going to be talking about 2019 very soon.
We've been talking for 3 hours right now.
That is correct. So yes, it's probably a very good time to end for that reason as well. But yes, we will be doing a look ahead to 2019 on our next episode. So that will be fun. So we'll be talking about Lion King and many other things. But yes, in the interest of brevity or what little we can accomplish in sight of brevity, thank you all for listening to this episode. I'm not going to suggest that anyone spread the word based on this one because I know how this goes, but I will ask if anyone wants to support us on Patreon. They can just head to our website, which is watchreviewrepeat.com. Premium tab is in the top left. Click the Become a Patron button. $2 a month will get you access to bonus episodes that we do on a monthly basis, including the current one, which is on the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which came up on this episode when we were talking about Mr. Tom Waits and his performance. And you'll get early access to regular episodes as well. So it's a good deal. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at WRRPod on Twitter. Like us on Facebook as well. Watch, Review, Repeat, of course. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please send those our way at watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. Oh, you know what I just forgot?
What'd you just forget?
I forgot that we had a listener pick for Best Film of 2018.
No, what was it?
It was A Star Is Born. Had the most votes.
Yeah, they're definitely not wrong about that shit.
Yeah, so that was a good pick. Annihilation, Black Klansman, 8th Grade, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and Night School, all receiving votes as well. So
Night School? That's the one with what's his face? Chris Hart, right?
Yeah, that was the Kevin Hart one, I believe. Yeah,
I never saw that.
I didn't see it.
I need to see that one.
Yeah, so
he's a pretty funny dude. Chris Hart's a funny dude. I don't know if you know about Chris Hart or not.
I don't know about Chris Hart. I know of Kevin
Spoiler.
Hart, and he doesn't like gay kids or whatever, but it's fine, I guess.
He didn't like gay kids, but he likes gay kids now.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very authentic. I'm sure he's changed.
Yeah. Well, listen, if they said, listen, we're not going to pay you if you don't like gay kids, and then he says, oh, fuck, I fucking like gay kids. You know, I like gay kids now.
Well, he's not hosting the Oscars, so he doesn't like them that much. Let's put it that way. All right?
That's why I call him Chris Hart.
Okay.
270-minute IPAs in, by the way. Sorry.
Might explain some things. No, I think that is probably a long overdue time to go ahead and call it on this episode. So thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed our coverage of 2018. Agree, disagree. It's totally fine.
You might be wrong, though.
You might be wrong, but it's fine. It's okay. We forgive you. We're right, but you're wrong, and it's fine, but we forgive you. Look forward to our next episode in 2019, hopefully a little bit shorter than this one, but we had a lot to say, so what are you going to do? What are you going to fucking do, man? No, seriously. You guys have a wonderful afternoon or evening, because you probably started listening in the afternoon and then it transitioned to evening because it's so long, and now I'm just making things unnaturally longer, so I'm just going to hand it over to Andrew. Andrew's got something to say to you, doesn't he?
Ladies on the Minjay, bitches.